Chapter 402. Washington, Konoha Intelligence Agency Headquarters. When Rogers and Dr. Banner came to Tani's office with energy pistols that didn't belong to Earth, Konoha's intelligence agency was also holding a secret meeting attended by a few people. Frank the Punisher, Bronsky the Abomination, Daisy the Shockwave, Pietro the Quicksilver, Walter the Scarlet Witch, and other well-known superheroes in Konoha gathered in the highest-level conference room of the headquarters building at this time. Unlike the relaxed atmosphere of the headquarters in the past, at this time, a dignified look appeared on the faces of the Punishers and others, and an oppressive silence enveloped the entire conference room. We can't let things get worse. I suggest contacting Rog immediately. We need him now. The first to speak was Daisy. She said with a gloomy face, staring at the empty seat at the top of the long conference table. To be precise, she was looking at the virtual three-dimensional projection standing next to this seat. The main seat at the top of the conference table belongs to Rog. Although he hasn't returned to Earth for more than half a year, even so, no one dares to sit in this seat that belongs to the director of Konoha's intelligence agency and only belongs to Rog. Hokage-sama is cultivating in Konoha's hidden village. I have reported the current situation to Hokage-sama and obtained full authorization from Hokage-sama. The virtual three-dimensional projection next to Rog's seat is none other than his personal artificial intelligence assistant, Hinata. You are just an artificial intelligence. You are not qualified to make decisions for Rog. Daisy, who has rarely been angry, showed a violent temper that was completely different from the past and said loudly to Hinata, I have obtained full authorization from Hokage-sama. If you have any questions, you can wait until Hokage-sama returns to the headquarters and confirm with Hokage-sama in person. Before that, all the affairs of the headquarters will be handled by me. I have made a complete calculation of your proposals, and the highest success rate is less than 30%. Konoha's intelligence agency will continue to maintain the original action plan. Although Hinata's electronic voice is no different from a real human voice. But at this time, her words made people feel the innate cold-blooded and ruthless machine creation. Since Rog-sama has given Hinata full authorization, we should act according to the previous established plan. If Konoha's strength is damaged because of our actions, Rog-sama will not be happy when he comes back. When Daisy's anger was about to erupt like a volcano, the Punisher on the left spoke. As the existence that followed Rog for the longest time, the Punishers had a very high status in Konoha's headquarters. Even Peter and Walter, who did not have a clear superior-subordinate relationship with Rog, would show him great respect when they saw him. Although the Punisher's strength is far inferior to Abomination, Daisy, Pietro, and the others, in Konoha's headquarters, he is the highest existence under Rog. In this regard, even Hinata couldn't compare to the Punisher. Actually, I think you're a little too nervous, Daisy. Although the outside environment is indeed a bit bad, in general, it doesn't have much impact on our Konoha intelligence agency. And those extraterrestrial bastards won't dare to have ideas about us. After the Punisher finished speaking, Quicksilver Pietro also expressed his opinion. But as soon as he finished speaking, Walter, sitting next to him, gave him a look that told him to shut up. Forget it, you didn't hear anything. Although Pietro was Walter's brother, in front of Walter, he didn't have the dignity an older brother should have. Walter was the one who had the final say between the two. I support Daisy's plan. Although the success rate is not high, we have the responsibility to help the victims. Rog wouldn't want to see us not help them. Let's vote, one person, one vote. Those who support Daisy's plan can raise their hands now. Walter expressed her opinion and took the lead in raising her right hand. Although in Konoha's headquarters, Walter was the kind of person who didn't express her own opinions and didn't even have much interest in field operations. But strangely, her status in Konoha's headquarters was not much lower than the Punishers. Although Walter didn't explicitly deny Hinata's opinion, her action of raising her hand clearly expressed her true thoughts. As Walter raised her hand, Daisy and Pietro also raised their hands. Later, Dr. Lizard Connors and Red Tank also raised their right hands. The Punisher looked at everyone who raised their hands, thought seriously, and finally didn't raise his hand. Unlike others, in addition to being a member of Konoha's intelligence agency, he also has a psychic contract with Rogue. He can't violate Rogue's opinion. Although Hinata is now making decisions on behalf of Rogue, as long as Hinata has Rogue's authorization, he won't violate Hinata's orders. The Punisher didn't raise his hand, and Abomination certainly didn't raise his hand. In addition to the two of them, Black and Moonlight Stone also didn't raise their hands. There were a total of 11 people in the conference room, and the situation suddenly became 5-5. For a while, everyone's eyes were on Venom. What should we do? Which side do we support? Eddie, who was completely wrapped in Venom, whispered to Venom. Venom didn't come alone, his host Eddie also came with him. Unfortunately, as Venom's host, Eddie doesn't have any right to vote. If Eddie wasn't Venom's host, he wouldn't even be qualified to appear in this conference room. Don't look at me like that, I will only listen to Rogue's arrangements. Since Rogue has delegated power to Hinata, then I will listen to Hinata's arrangements. Venom spat out his long, red tongue and said casually. 6-5, Daisy's plan failed by 1 vote. The scene that happened in Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters was quickly learned by Rogue. Although he hasn't returned to Earth in the past 6 months, this doesn't mean that he knows nothing about what happened on Earth. Glancing at the surveillance video of the conference room that Hinata sent, Rogue sighed helplessly. Walter is more popular than I thought. Let's not talk about Daisy and Pietro. They will definitely support Walter. But what I didn't expect was that Dr. Connors and Red Tank would also stand on Walter's side. At this time, Rogue wasn't in the practice room, but in the office of the Hokage building. After watching the surveillance video, he stood up from the chair and came to the window, looking at the sun that was about to set in the distance. Forget it, let's go back first. If I let the Skrull people continue to play, I don't know what the consequences will be. It's time for this farce to end. Chapter 403. The big event that gave Tani and other Avengers headaches and caused Konoha to be divided, to some extent, is not a particularly serious matter. At least in the eyes of Rogue, who has the aura of a prophet, this big event is not serious. Simply put, the big event that happened on Earth now is the legendary secret invasion of the Skrulls. As for why the secret invasion of the Skrulls suddenly broke out at this time, because there is still not enough information, Rogue is not particularly clear for the time being. However, there was one thing he was sure of. The evil version of superheroes that appeared on Earth was a smokescreen created by the Skrulls using their own racial abilities and advanced technology that surpassed Earth's civilization. At this point, it was necessary to mention what had happened on Earth during the past 6 months that Rogue had been cultivating. After Rogue sent Dr. Banner, who was kidnapped by the rope grass slavers, back to Earth, Dr. Banner resumed his superhero career as Hulk to fight evil and save the world and people. Hulk's heroic actions in the eyes of the general public were not a problem because he did this before. But no one thought that shortly after Hulk resumed his heroic actions, Hulk's reputation plummeted at a speed visible to the naked eye. Now, Hulk is no longer regarded as a superhero, but as a violent vigilante who ignores the law. The reason for such a huge reversal in reputation is due to one of Hulk's actions. It was a normal fire rescue activity. Hulk came to the scene of the fire and rescued ordinary people trapped in the sea of fire. If one only looked at the results, this operation was very normal. After all, Hulk had successfully rescued the victims of the disaster. But the problem was that while rescuing the victims, the careless Hulk accidentally overturned the burning building. Then, the collapsed building killed the firefighters on the scene, as well as a large group of reporters on the scene. If this kind of accident only happened once, people's reputation for Hulk would not have deteriorated so badly. After all, this was just an uncontrollable accident. However, ever since this accident happened, news of Hulk harming innocent people in his subsequent heroic actions kept appearing. Not only was Hulk's action like this, even Iron Man and Captain America, the face of the Avengers, were the same. They worked hard to uphold justice and save people's lives, but their righteous actions took away the lives of more innocent people. For example, when Iron Man organized the bank robbers, the missile fired accidentally detonated a nearby oil tanker. Another example is when Captain America attacked the black market weapons dealer. The bomb at the scene killed other residents around him. On the surface, these heroic actions seemed to be upholding justice, but they took away the lives of innocent people again and again. And this kind of incident of innocent people being injured in action didn't only happen to famous hero teams such as Konoha and the Avengers. Even the less famous vigilante teams, such as the Defender League, that just appeared in Hell's Kitchen, have also had similar accidents. As accidents continued to happen and certain people added fuel to the fire, the profession of superheroes suddenly fell to the level of a rat crossing the street. Now, there were protests against superheroes almost every day, asking the government to regulate these superheroes with extraordinary abilities. There were even many government members who took advantage of the situation to propose a superhero registration bill, requiring every superhero to register their identity and accept government jurisdiction. This was not the first time the Avengers had encountered this kind of opposition from the public. The previous Seoul incident caused by Ultron had already caused the Avengers to experience a similar protest. However, this protest was completely different from before. Because these accidents that caused the deaths of innocent people were not done by hero teams such as the Avengers and Konoha. After Hulk's first accident, the Avengers found that something was wrong. At that time, Dr. Banner was conducting research in the Avengers headquarters. It was impossible for him to appear at the scene of the fire to rescue the trapped people, let alone collapse the building and kill the firefighters and reporters at the scene. Similarly, Konoha also found that something was wrong with the accidents caused by the impersonation of Konoha's heroes. Although the Avengers and Konoha had made a public explanation of this, it was a pity that the people did not believe the evidence they provided. Instead, they thought that this was fake evidence in order to escape responsibility. The protests and distrust of the people were only one aspect. What was even more troublesome was that the hero teams represented by the Avengers and Konoha were protested and targeted at the official level. Now, a large number of protesting people gathered around the headquarters of the Avengers and Konoha headquarters, as well as military forces arranged by the military. People protested, the government targeted, and these superheroes on Earth suddenly became the most unpopular existence. Rog looked at the various evidence and information sent by Hinata and saw what was going on at a glance. Using high-tech and their own transformation ability, the Skrulls transformed into superheroes on Earth and put the blame on the superheroes. At the same time, the Skrulls, who had long been hidden in the government, used the power of the government to further solidify this blame. The real superheroes were facing protests from the people and the government. And the fake superheroes of the Skrulls were constantly exacerbating the situation. For example, just a week ago, a Skrull disguised as Hulk suddenly broke into a protest site of thousands of people and killed them on live TV. The framing method of the Skrulls wasn't clever, it could even be said to be simple and crude. But in the face of their innate racial talent and the advanced technology of Earth, their actions achieved an unimaginable great effect. Although the framing method used by the Skrulls was somewhat crude, until now, the Avengers and Konoha have not confirmed their true identity. These Skrulls didn't confront the heroes of the Avengers and Konoha at all. The real heroes haven't appeared yet, but these fakes have already disappeared. Only Rog, who had the aura of a prophet, could see the truth of the matter at a glance. Although it wasn't quite the same as what he remembered, Rog was certain that this incident was caused by the secret invasion of the Skrulls. Chapter 404. Hinata, pull up all the information about the Skrull. Rog, who was standing in front of the huge window, said, then turned and sat back on the chair. Yes, Hokage-sama. In just 2 or 3 seconds, Hinata projected a holographic image of the Skrull's information in front of Rog. This information wasn't collected by Rog, nor by Konoha, but by the Golden Jack. Before the transformation, the Golden Jack was the main battleship of the Carey Empire. Although the Golden Jack doesn't participate in the space war anymore, the Carey Empire's database still exists. The Skrull was one of the main enemies of the Carey Empire, and there is a lot of information about them in the Golden Jack. It's also worth mentioning that in order to avoid losing the precious information in the battleship, Rog asked Hinata to make 2 copies of the Golden Jack and put them in the Konoha Intelligence Agency headquarters and the Konoha Hidden Village. According to the internal information of the Kari Empire, Logue knew that a few decades ago, the Kari Empire had conquered the mother planet of the Skrulls, turning the Skrulls into wanderers in the universe. The strength of the Skrull is now far from its heyday, but even so, the level of technology they have mastered is far beyond that of the Earth. According to the records, in ancient times, the Skrull were divided into 2 kinds. One is the mutant Skrull with the ability to transform at will, and the other is the eternal Skrull who can't transform but are very powerful. Later, the mutant Skrull destroyed the eternal Skrull and became the ancestors of the modern Skrull. This is the reason why the current Skrull have the ability to transform. Currently, the Skrullu people all had the ability to shapeshift at will, but their shapeshifting abilities varied. The average Skrull can only change their appearance at will and disguise themselves as other races. Moreover, they don't need any auxiliary means to transform. As long as they look at the target, they can perfectly transform into the target, and even their voice will be the same. Ordinary Skrulls could only change their appearance, but the more powerful Skrulls could not only change their appearance, but also copy their target's memories. However, if you want to copy the target's memory, just looking at the target is not enough. You need to have a little contact with the target and obtain the target's DNA. According to the Kari's test, the Skrull's memory duplication is only a short-term memory duplication. It can't copy the target's complete life memory. The Skrull who can copy memories can be regarded as the elites of the Skrull race. However, this isn't the limit of the Skrull race. In the Skrull race, there is also the Super Skrull. The Super Skrull can not only copy the target's memory, but they can also copy the target's ability and make themselves the same as the target. As for how the Super Skrull's ability, the Kari Empire didn't study the theory of the Skrull's race. This was because even though the Kari Empire had conquered the Skrull homeworld, they didn't manage to capture a single Super Skrull. If they didn't see the perfect copy of the Super Skrull on the battlefield, the Kari would have suspected that the Super Skrull was an extinct existence like the Eternal Skrull. In Rog's memory, the Super Skrull's secret invasion was caused by the Super Skrull's disguise as the Avengers, causing a serious crisis of trust within the Avengers, which eventually led to the secret invasion of Earth. From the various superhero-related incidents reported by Hinata, Rog hasn't found any signs of the Super Skrull. However, this doesn't rule out the possibility that there are no Super Skrulls on Earth. Who knows if the Skrull used advanced technology to copy the superhero-related abilities, or if the Super Skrull among them copied the superhero-related abilities. After all, some things can be achieved with technology even without genetic mutation. Rog wasn't interested in the Skrull's ability to transform and copy memories, because his transformation and Sharingan's illusion can achieve similar effects. However, he was still very interested in the Super Skrull's ability to copy the target's abilities. One of the Sharingan's specialties is copying, but it can only copy the target's movements and abilities that don't involve genetic mutation. The Super Skrull's ability to copy has obviously broken through this limit. He doesn't know why, but ever since he met the Treant Groot in the Land of Nothingness, Rog began to understand Orochimaru more and more. Master all the truths of time, learn all the ninjutsu abilities. This kind of future is really tempting. However, understanding is one thing. Rog has no idea of developing into a Franken-ninja like Orochimaru for the time being. The reason is simple. He has more cards in his hand than Orochimaru, and he hasn't reached the point where he needs to break through the taboo to gain power. Hinata, make a copy of the adjusted Hashimoto Tanku and send it to Konoha's headquarters. I should go back to fulfill my promise. As soon as his voice fell, a brilliant aurora-like light appeared around Rog's body. In the next second, his figure disappeared, and in an instant he went from the office in the Hokage building to the transmission base connecting the Earth and the planet Tatooine. When the black boulder liquefied into a pool of petroleum-like liquid, Rog didn't even think about it and directly jumped in. In a few seconds, he returned from Konoha's hidden village to Konoha's intelligence headquarters, which he hasn't returned to for half a year. More than 10 minutes later, Tani in the headquarters received a call from Rog. I heard that you have been troubled by a group of aliens recently. This is not your style. As soon as Rog's voice sounded, Tani on the other end of the phone complained with dissatisfaction. You still have the nerve to say that? Do you think everyone is like you, throwing everything directly to their artificial intelligence assistant? Rog didn't have time to explain what is the reasonable use of the potential of artificial intelligence. Tani's voice sounded again. Don't talk nonsense, you should already know what is going on outside now. Let's meet, you choose the place, and I will decide the time. Tani seemed to give a fair choice. But in the next second, he said the time of the meeting. I choose to meet now, you choose a place. This was indeed Tony Stark's way of doing things. Chapter 405. Now? Okay, the location is at Konoha's Intelligence Agency headquarters. You haven't been here yet, so this time you can come and have a look. Tani wanted to tease Rog, and Rog certainly had to do something. Konoha's Intelligence Agency headquarters? No problem, in 5 minutes, you open a portal, and I'll bring people there right away. Tani froze for a moment, then replied calmly. Why do you want me to open a portal? It's you who wants to come over, not me who wants to pick you up. Rog wasn't surprised that Tani knew that he could open a portal. After all, Natasha and Scott have seen his portal, so it's normal for Tani to know about it. Okay, stop fooling around. Open a portal. You should know that recently, it's not suitable for us to leave the headquarters base openly. Tani on the other end of the phone finally stopped joking and said seriously. Okay, in 5 minutes, I'll wait for you in the conference room here, and you can bring people over. The entrance of the portal, I'll open it in the conference room where we met last time. After confirming the time to open the portal with Tani, Rog looked up at the holographic image of Hinata in front of him and said, Inform Daisy and Walter, let them all come to the big conference room on the 5th floor. Konoha is going to work with the Avengers for once. Okay, Hokage-sama. After receiving Rog's instructions, Hinata's holographic image quickly disappeared. 5 minutes later, in the conference room on the 5th floor of Konoha's headquarters building, Rog saw Tani and others who he hadn't seen for a long time. Tani, Rogers, Natasha, Banner, Patton, Rode, Sam, Illusion, Scott. This time, Tani brought all the main members of the Avengers. Of course, except for Thor, who is still dealing with government affairs in Asgard. What happened to your eyes? As soon as they met, Tani saw that Rog's eyes were no longer blood red and asked with concern. It's nothing. It's just a side effect of obtaining some kind of power. Rog did not explain the supercilious eye to Tani. Not only did he explain it to Tani, but he also explained it to Daisy and Walter. The more he explained, the more troublesome it would be to roll his eyes. Therefore, in order to avoid trouble, the best thing to do was to quell their curiosity from the beginning. Sit anywhere you like. After giving Tani a gentle hug, Rog said to the side. In the large conference room, there was a large rectangular conference table that could seat more than 20 people. Rog wanted to learn from King Arthur and put a big round table here to symbolize equality, but under Hinata's suggestion, he finally gave up the idea. Although the Konoha Intelligence Agency is not the real Konoha, it still needs a clear hierarchy. Blindly pursuing the so-called equality will only weaken the power of the Konoha Intelligence Agency. This was Hinata's suggestion after learning a lot about organizational structure. The main seat at the top of the conference table was, of course, Rog's seat. Tani sat next to Rog on the right, and Frank the Punisher sat opposite him on the left. When Tani sat down, Rogers and the others also sat down, and then looked at the people of Konoha without saying a word. Since everyone is here, let's start. Hinata, show us the information of the scrolls. As soon as Rog finished speaking, the light in the conference room dimmed a bit. Then, a virtual holographic projection screen appeared in front of everyone. This is an alien race called Skrull, with a long history and advanced technology. However, their mother planet was destroyed by another space civilization, the Carey Empire, and now they are wanderers in the universe. What you see now is the true appearance of the Skrulls. Of course, you can be more familiar with their other appearance. As soon as his voice fell, the picture on the screen changed, showing the previous action that led to the death of innocent people. In the picture, there was Hulk who was more than 2 meters tall, Tony who was wearing an Iron Man suit, Rogers who was holding a shield, and Barton who was shooting arrows. Basically, in front of everyone, there was a picture of their actions. Everyone in the Avengers saw their figure in the picture. On Konoha's side, only Abomination, Red Tank, Daisy, Pietro, and Moonlight Stone, who often act outside, had pictures of their actions. Being reminded by Rog to this extent, even if the people in the room were stupid, they understood what was going on. What happened in the past 6 months was the doing of these scrolls. As for the purpose, on one hand, it was to make the people and the government hate you, and on the other hand, it was to invade the Earth. Rog glanced at the expression of the people in the room and continued. Invade the Earth? After hearing this word, Tawny, Rogers, and the others, who are more familiar with the government's operations, immediately thought of something. You mean, they are not just imitating us? Rogers took the lead and asked. In fact, I prefer to use the word transformation to describe their ability. The Skrullu race is a natural spy race. Their racial talent allows them to transform into anyone's appearance. Having said that, Rog paused for a few seconds, and then said in a serious tone, You guessed right, they are also in some of the government agencies. Maybe the recent report against the Avengers and Konoha was written by them. After Rog finished, even Venom and Dr. Connors, who didn't have much contact with the government, realized the seriousness of the matter for the first time. Since you already know who they are, then you should also have a way to distinguish them, right? Tawny asked with a frown. I can distinguish them, but this is my personal ability. As far as I know, there is no instrument that can directly distinguish the Skrulls in the state of transformation. Of course, if you can invent one, that would be even better. Rog was telling the truth, because even the Carey Empire, which destroyed the Skrulls' mother planet, has not invented an instrument that can reveal the Skrulls' true form. In this regard, the only thing that could be counted on was Tony's brain, which had been turned on a cheat. Tawny can even create a space-time tracking device, and inventing an instrument that can see through the transformation of the Skrulls shouldn't be too much of a problem for him. Does this race have any shortcomings? Tawny didn't immediately answer Rog, but Natasha, who was sitting in the third seat on the right, raised her own question. Of course. Although the transformation ability of the Skrulls is very powerful, it can even be considered perfect. But their individual strength is not strong. If it is an ordinary Skrull, everyone here has the strength to defeat them. But the premise is that you can distinguish them, and you only met an ordinary Skrull. Rog emphasized the word ordinary. Ordinary? Then what if it is not ordinary? Natasha cooperated and asked again. This is the reason why the Restoration Alliance is cooperating with Konoha this time. Ordinary Skrulls can only change their appearance, the more powerful ones can also copy short-term memories, but these aren't too big of a problem. The real problem is the Super Skrull. When Rog mentioned the Super Skrull, the holographic screen in front of everyone changed again. The Super Skrull and ordinary Skrulls have no difference in appearance, but the Super Skrull can not only transform and copy memories, but also copy the ability of their target. For example, if a Super Skrull turns into Hulk's appearance, then it is very likely that he has the same strength as Hulk. Although the ability copied by the Super Skrull is a counterfeit, it won't be too different from the original. When Rog finished speaking, the conference room suddenly fell into a dead silence. Chapter 406. A group of fake Hulks that aren't much weaker than Hulk. Even if there are only 10 of these fake Hulks, as long as there are 2 or 3 of them, it would be enough to cause an unimaginable disaster. Thinking of this, the faces of Tawny and the others became more and more ugly. You don't have to be so pessimistic. There won't be many of these Super Skrulls, otherwise, they wouldn't have avoided direct confrontation with you. Rog glanced at Tawny and the others and continued. According to the records of the Carey Empire, the proportion of Super Skrulls in the entire Skrull race isn't very high. It's about 1 in a few hundred ordinary Skrulls. So in general, they don't need to worry too much about these Super Skrulls. I hope so. Tawny replied weakly. The current situation is bad enough. If these Super Skrulls that can replicate abilities are added, the situation will only develop in a worse direction. Anyway, thank you for bringing back this information, at least let us know who the enemy is. After sorting out his somewhat depressed mood, Tani thanked Rog. You don't have to be so polite. Although the philosophy of the Restoration Alliance and Konoha is not the same, at this time, we are allies on the same front. Rog replied with a smile. In the following time, Rog and Tani discussed the sharing of the Restoration Alliance and Konoha's intelligence network and shared the information they have obtained with each other. After discussing the general details of the cooperation, Tani returned to the Restoration Alliance headquarters with the Americans. However, when they returned to the Restoration Alliance headquarters, Rog left Dr. Banner, or more accurately, Hulk, behind. Until a living Skrull is captured, or until Tani develops a device to identify Skrulls, Konoha and the Restoration Alliance can only continue to endure the Skrulls' behavior of throwing blame at them. Knowing the existence of the Skrulls doesn't mean that they can immediately reverse the current situation. They still have a lot of preparation to do if they want to truly stop the Skrulls' secret invasion. While Hinata assigned tasks to Daisy, Walter, and the others, Rog took Hulk to his private training room. Do you remember what I told you last time? After coming to the training room the size of a football field, Rog looked up and said to Hulk, "Yes, you said you wanted to teach Hulk the Hashiman Tanku." Hulk certainly wouldn't forget the words that Logue had said to him. As he spoke, he excitedly gestured to Logue to use the 8 inner hidden gates. Looking at the excited Hulk, Rog took a few steps back and said, "Hinata, Project Hulk's version of the Hashiman Tanku." As soon as his voice fell, a holographic display screen of Hulk's size appeared in front of Hulk. Hulk, estis, to you. Rog explained to Hulk, then raised his right hand and wrapped his chakras around his hand. Although is different, this power won't be too different. More importantly, as long as you can open the 3rd gate of life, you can also emit green light. To be honest, even now, Rog didn't know whether it was because Hulk liked the 8 inner hidden gates because it was powerful enough, or because after opening the 3rd gate, it would emit a green light, so he was interested in the 8 inner hidden gates. But no matter what the reason is, as long as Hulk is interested in Hashiman Tanku, it's fine. Because he's also very curious about how powerful Hashiman Tankus can be after Hulk's. Good. Hulk answered excitedly. Here are only the first 5. After you've thoroughly mastered these 5, I'll teach you the other 3. Although Rog has all the Hashiman Tanku's cultivation methods, he himself has only practiced the 6th. So before he fully masters Hashiman Tanku, it's impossible for him to modify Hashiman Tankus to a suitable version based on his own experience. Even if Hinata carries out a massive amount of data simulation, it won't work. I'll work hard to learn the first 5. Hulk said solemnly to Rog. Then you should first memorize the Hashiman Tanku's cultivation methods. Your physical condition has fully met the Hashiman Tanku standards, so mastering the first 3 shouldn't be difficult for you. After leaving Hulk alone in the training room to memorize Hashiman Tankus, Rog told Hinata to pay attention to Hulk's situation at all times, lest Hulk destroy his training room in a fit of excitement. After that, he returned to his office and dialed Secretary of State Ross' phone number. He didn't say too much to Ross, just simply told him that he's back, and then hung up the phone. Then he summoned the Yondaime Hokage's Haori from the summon scroll, which he hasn't worn for a long time, as well as the Thunder Fan and the Kusanagi sword. The Yondaime Hokage hasn't appeared in front of people for a long time, and now it's time for a high-profile return ceremony. After putting on the Haori's Haori, and wearing the Thunder Fan and the Kusanagi sword, Kuroto pushed open the huge window of the office and flew out using the super light rock technique. In a few seconds, he flew over the gate of Konoha's intelligence agency, overlooking the protesters below. Since the establishment of Konoha's intelligence agency, the most intuitive evaluation of Konoha's is. But now, the protesters below seem to have completely forgotten Konoha's domineering style. Just as Rog, who was floating in the air, looked at the protesters in front of Konoha's headquarters gate, A reporter standing outside the protest crowd moved his sore neck. Then he saw Rog floating in the air. This person is... At the first sight of Rog, the male reporter couldn't recognize him for a while. Instead, he thought about who in Konoha has the ability to fly. After a few seconds, the male reporter in a black suit suddenly widened his eyes and looked up at Rog in the air with a look of disbelief. The Yondaime Hokage Rog. In Konoha, only the Yondaime Rog has the ability to fly. After realizing this, the male reporter excitedly patted the cameraman next to him, indicating the cameraman to turn the camera. This is big news. The Yondaime Hokage, who hasn't appeared for a long time, personally appeared at the scene of the protest. This will definitely make tomorrow's headlines. However, the cameraman next to the male reporter didn't have time to turn the camera. Rog, who was floating in the air, hit the ground like a meteor. Rog didn't control his speed and directly made a superhero's landing. Boom! A huge impact sounded, and the ground under Rog's feet cracked like a spider web. Rog's landing immediately suppressed the protests at the scene. The originally manic protesters at this time, as if the mute button was pressed, quietly watched Rog landing in front of Konoha's headquarters gate. Rog's white eyes glanced at the suddenly quiet crowd, and then said in a cold tone, "Are you dissatisfied with Konoha?" Chapter 407. In an instant, all the cameras were aimed at Rog, who was falling from the sky, and the dazzling flashes continued to light up. No one thought that Rog would appear at the scene of the protest at this time, and in such an unfriendly way. Unlike the protesters who suddenly quieted down and showed a panicked look, the reporters present couldn't help but smile. Big news, this is big news in the true sense. Protests like this have happened countless times in the past 6 months. Even the news media and the vast majority of the audience have lost interest in these daily protests. If it weren't to avoid missing big events, such as the scene of Hulk killing at the scene of the protest, these news media wouldn't even be interested in arranging for reporters to come. After all, the same drama has been staged for 6 months in a row, and the audience has long been tired of it. Therefore, the reporters sent by the media were either small-time reporters who weren't famous, or people who were on the fringe of the station. However, no one thought that. It was such an ordinary protest that attracted the 4th Hokage, Rog, who hasn't shown up for a long time. Rog ignored the reporters and just looked at the protesters in front of him with a cold expression. Time passed by second, under the strong pressure of Rog. These originally fanatical protesters are now like frosted eggplants, completely deflated. Just when Rog was considering whether to release some killing intent to scare away these people who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth, a strong man in his 30s came out of the crowd. Thus, we are dissatisfied with Konoha. We are not only dissatisfied with Konoha, we are also dissatisfied with you superheroes who ignore human life. The man was a little afraid at first, but after seeing Rog not saying a word, his courage suddenly surged into his heart and he spoke loudly to Rog. We don't need your protection, we want, however, just when the man planned to completely occupy the initiative of public opinion, Rog, who was 5 or 6 meters away from him, suddenly appeared in front of him like a ghost. What do you want to do? Do you want to stop me with violence? I tell you, we are not afraid of you, Roger didn't let the man continue to blabber on. With a roundhouse kick, he viciously kicked the man's chest, sending him flying. Although Rog didn't use much strength, the man couldn't resist his roundhouse kick and flew out in an instant, knocking over the crowd behind him. No one thought that Rog would actually dare to do it, and in front of the protesters and reporters. After kicking the man, Rog stood in the same place with a gloomy face and said in a cold tone, "All of you get out of here." For a time, a biological instinct, a sense of crisis emerged in everyone's heart. This time, Rog directly released a small portion of his killing intent. Roger's murderous intent instantly suppressed the anger that was about to ignite in the protesters, once again turning them into frosted eggplants. You dare to kick me. You're finished. Did you see that? This is the self-proclaimed superhero Yondaime Hokage. He attacked innocent people like this. The other protesters, because of the killing intent released by Rog, didn't dare to make a sound. However, the man who was kicked away by Roger didn't feel the killing intent released by Roger because of the pain, or because he was blinded by anger, pointed at Roger and shouted loudly. Roger didn't know if it was because of the pain, or because he was blinded by anger. Looking at the excited man who couldn't wait to point his finger at his face, Rog put his left hand on the Kusanagi sword at his waist. Just as the man continued to loudly encourage the crowd around him, trying to suppress Rog with the power of public opinion, Rog once again flashed in front of him. But this time, with Rog came the Kusanagi sword in his hand. But the Kusanagi sword, without the lightning and chakra, drew a silver-white arc and directly cut through the man's neck. In the next second, a head with an exaggerated expression and bright red blood flew into the air. Like a basketball that had been missed, it fell into the crowd. Inciting ignorant people, slandering state officials, attacking state intelligence agencies, according to the relevant laws, beheading on the spot. After wiping the blood off the Kusanagi sword, Rog said expressionlessly. After that, Rog turned his head to look at the camera on the left and continued. In order to protect the life and property of every citizen of the United States, from today onwards, Konoha Intelligence Agency will investigate all related protests according to the law and arrest the people behind the scenes. Rog's words were broadcasted in the first place, and in the form of breaking news, it appeared on the major media news channels. In fact, not long after he appeared on the scene, the reporters on the scene urgently contacted the live broadcast room and broadcast the scene for the first time. Looking at the scene where Rog kicked the man and then directly killed him, all the people who watched this scene had the same thought in their mind. Konoha Intelligence Agency is really going to make a move. However, Rog's declaration didn't end there. When he put on the Kusanagi sword that was no longer stained with blood, he said again, I, Rog, the current director of Konoha Intelligence Agency, now authorize the operations of Konoha Intelligence Agency according to the law. During the operation of Konoha's relevant personnel, if there is any obstruction, the personnel can use force according to the law to kill the obstructor. For the relevant personnel who obstruct Konoha's operations or assist the people behind the protests to avoid investigation, Konoha will fully investigate their social relations and do its best to protect the safety of citizens and the state. Although Rog said it very euphemistically, as long as one has the basic ability to think, they can see the real meaning of this authorization declaration. Simply put, if you participate in protests or obstruct Konoha's investigation, Konoha's personnel will not only kill you, but also investigate your family, parents, and friends. Of course, the means of investigation may be a bit different from the civil rights of citizens. However, this is not the first time Konoha has done this kind of thing. When Konoha captured the remaining members of Hydra, Konoha did something similar. It's just that at that time, Rog didn't disclose the authority of Konoha's personnel to the public. But this time, not only did he directly disclose the authority of Konoha's personnel to the public, but he also did it after killing a protester. Rog is different from Tani and others. He has no feelings for this country. More importantly, he won't be bound by public opinion or official procedures like Tani and others. Violence can't solve all problems, but sometimes, violence is the best way to solve problems. Chapter 408. What Rog made at this time was not so much a declaration of authorization to the personnel of Konoha's intelligence agency, but a naked threat to the protesters. He was not in the mood to fight with these protesters. He wanted to solve these annoying guys in the simplest and most violent way. If there is really a guy who is not afraid of death, then he doesn't mind letting them see what is called Konoha's hegemony. After living in the United States for so many years, he fully understood one truth, that is, the people of the United States have a general mentality of being strong. As long as you are stronger than them, as long as you can show absolute power that they can't resist, they would become like trained pet dogs, obedient to their master's every command. After issuing a threat to the camera that was broadcasting in real time, Rog didn't intend to stay here. He directly used the super light rock technique to fly up and flew toward the temporary military camp stationed not far from Konoha's headquarters. After solving the protests from ordinary people, it is natural to drive away the watchdogs arranged by the military. Watching Rog's figure quickly disappear into the distance, the protesters and reporters gathered in front of the gate of Konoha's intelligence agency showed a complex look of anger and fear. Anger because of Rog's straightforward threat. Fear stemmed from the memory of Logue's terrifying strength. Not long after Rog left, the protesters who had gathered in front of Konoha's gate for several days immediately disappeared. Even the various garbage left by them was cleaned up by them. Rog is not worried about whether the protesters will continue to gather in front of Konoha's gate and refuse to leave. If these people still don't leave when he returns to Konoha, then they don't have to think about leaving. Using thunder-like means to solve the various protests facing Konoha and the Restoration Alliance is something he has planned for a long time. However, he didn't tell Tani and others about his plan. Not long after, Rog flew over the temporary military camp a few kilometers away from Konoha's headquarters and looked at the army below. Without any hesitation, he made another superhero landing and landed directly in the center of the military camp. Boom! The sound of a huge collision rang out, like the sound of a bugle horn, causing the entire military camp to come alive. Within a few seconds, several heavily armed teams came to the vicinity of Rog, looking vigilantly at the fourth Hokage who fell from the sky. Who is the supreme commander here? Rog ignored the muzzles aimed at him and said expressionlessly. If it was under normal circumstances, an intruder like him would definitely be attacked immediately. However, because of his identity, the soldiers in charge of security did not dare to pull the trigger. Although the fourth Hokage Rog is not like other superheroes who often carry out heroic actions to uphold justice. However, whether it was the warriors present or the ordinary people who were not present, none of them had ever doubted his strength. Some curious ordinary people, as well as some seemingly bored investigation organizations, had done some rigorous calculations on Rog's strength. The result of the calculation was that Rog alone can defeat the entire Avengers. Although Rog has not really fought with the Avengers, this calculation result, which was released by an unofficial investigation organization, was not only not denied by people, but also received a large number of support from the public. I am the commander here, Colonel Jess. Not long after Rog asked, a middle-aged man in camouflage came to him and looked at him with a serious face. I will give you half an hour to evacuate. After half an hour, if you still let me see you, you will bear the consequences. After threatening the ordinary people, Rog now threatened the military. I did not receive an evacuation order from the army. Although facing Rog, who is far stronger than himself, Colonel Jess did not show any fear and said in a serious tone, "This is not an order from the army, it is my order. Remember, you only have half an hour." After saying that, Rog did not continue to pay attention to Colonel Jess and the soldiers around him, and flew again in the direction of Konoha's headquarters. Before flying back to his office, Rog took a look at the current situation of Konoha's gate. Yes, they left very thoroughly. At this time, in front of Konoha's gate, except for the body and head that were beheaded by his sword, no one could be seen. Compared with some time ago, the current Konoha's gate can be said to be empty, making people feel relaxed and happy. After flying back to his office from the huge open window, Rog directly called Hinata. Hinata, get someone to dispose of the garbage in front of the gate. In addition, investigate the social background of this guy and see if there is any scroll behind him. The so-called garbage in Rog's mouth was the body with its head separated from its body. Just a few seconds after he ordered Hinata, the phone on the desk rang. Are you crazy? Do you know what you just did? You killed an American citizen in a live broadcast, an American citizen with legal status. Before Roger had the chance to speak, Tony on the other end of the phone spoke in a loud voice that was close to a roar. Tani didn't expect that just more than 10 minutes ago, they were still discussing how to deal with the Skrulls in Konoha's headquarters. In the end, as soon as he turned around, Roger killed an American citizen in a live broadcast. The people are protesting, the impeachment documents are piling up in Capitol Hill, you are making Konoha and the Restoration Alliance the public enemy of the United States. Tani on the other side of the phone roared. Calm down. I can assure you that none of what you've said will happen. Compared with the extremely emotional Tani, Rog's face was calm at this time. Now, he was even thinking about what to eat for his first dinner after returning to Earth. Would you like to have a traditional Chinese meal or a French feast? What guarantee do you have? You're just adding fuel to the fire. Tani, in an emotional state, completely lost his usual calm, like a politician who was robbed of all his power by his political enemies. First of all, if there really is a guy who is not afraid of death and dares to do this, I don't mind letting Konoha's special warfare team act as an assassination team. Secondly, if you always follow the rules, you will never be able to deal with the Skrulls who don't follow the rules. Finally, this is an important truth that I learned from my last trip in the universe. I will share it with you now. As long as your fist is big enough, not to mention dealing with a country, even if you slaughter an entire planet, no one will dare to say anything. This was something that Roger had learned from Thanos. It was a principle that he had known for a long time, but he had never used it. Chapter 409. Although Thanos's family planning theory was not well learned, his decisiveness in dealing with things was still worth learning. Especially the kind of resolute attitude that, in order to achieve the goal, regardless of everything, and even at the expense of half of the lives in the universe, is an example that every planner should learn. Of course, what Rog recognized was only the decisiveness and determination shown by Thanos, not his crazy plan. If he was in Thanos's perspective, he would never adopt such a simple and crude plan with extremely unstable benefits. The concept of family planning and sustainable development is the real artifact to complete Thanos's ideal. Instead of simply destroying half of the lives to ensure that the existing resources in the universe can meet the development of various races. If there is a chance, Rog doesn't mind talking to Thanos about this. You are hegemonism, and you will not be loved and recognized by people. After listening to Rog's sharing, Tani was silent for more than 10 seconds, and then continued. Although Tani still can't accept Rog's idea, his mood has obviously calmed down a lot. People's love and recognition? Tani, are you mistaken? I don't need people's love and recognition, and Konoha doesn't need it either. Although the people outside call us superheroes, to be honest, I have no interest in this so-called hero title at all. At this point, Rog paused and then said in a very serious tone, I never wanted to be a hero. I just want to protect the people around me and maintain my current life. I don't mind helping ordinary people who need help, and I can also use my own ability to maintain peace. However, the premise of all this is that I am willing to do it. If I have such strength, I have to help or save others unconditionally. This is not a superhero, this is called moral kidnapping. So, I don't care what others will think of me. Even if people outside say that I am a cold-blooded butcher or an overbearing dictator, I don't care at all. Rog didn't want to talk to Tani about this, but after hearing Tani naively say the words hegemonism and people's love, he felt that it was necessary to let Tani know his true thoughts. Speaking of hegemonism, the United States is the biggest hegemonism on the earth. Tani didn't expect that Rog's ideas would be so extreme. But thinking about it, what he said still made some sense. Although his approach was a little tough, he still controlled his actions and didn't really start a massacre or go on a rampage. Forget it, that's it. Since you dare to do this, it means that you are sure. After saying that helplessly, Tony hung up the phone. After ending the call with Tony, Roger didn't stay idle and immediately issued the latest action orders to all action teams in Konoha in the name of the director of Konoha's intelligence agency. With New York and Washington as the center, thoroughly investigate all protest actions. Since the Skrull people used the card of encouraging people to protest superheroes, then Rog didn't mind directly tearing up this card. The practice of public pressure may be useful for native superheroes like Tani. But for Rog, who doesn't play by the rules at all, it doesn't make sense at all. Only when people care about public opinion and people's evaluation, this kind of public pressure will have the desired effect. What Rog did was to openly stand on the opposite side of public opinion and directly use force to threaten these people. Only magic can deal with magic. Similarly, only hooligans can deal with hooligans. And Rog is the hooligan with the bigger fist. More than half an hour later, he used chakra perception to perceive the situation at the temporary military camp. As he expected, after he personally appeared and issued a threat, the military behind the temporary military camp chose to take a step back and withdraw the troops stationed near Konoha's headquarters. After solving the public opinion and official surveillance, Rog didn't plan to continue for the time being. The Skrull people's shape-shifting ability allows them to easily hide in the crowd. So before there is any more reliable information, he won't plan to make a move. After throwing the Kusanagi sword, Thunder Fan, Haori, and other equipment back into the summon scroll, Rog returned to the practice room. At first, he was a little worried that when Hulk memorized the contents of the Hashman Tanku, he would involuntarily practice it and then collapse his practice room. But when he returned to the practice room, he found that he somewhat overestimated Hulk's memory. At this time, more than half an hour has passed since he left the practice room, but Hulk didn't even remember the contents of the first door. This progress is a bit worrying. Memorizing the contents of the practice is the simplest step in practicing the Hashman Tanku. But this simple step has become the most difficult step for Hulk. Looking at Hulk, who was painfully reciting the contents of the 8 inner hidden gates as if he were reciting an ancient poem, Roger sighed. He walked over to Hulk's side and became Hulk's tutor. With Rog's help, Hulk's memorization process has significantly improved. In the end, after spending nearly 2 hours, Hulk successfully memorized the first 5 of the Hashman Tanku. That's it for today. You can deepen your understanding tonight, and tomorrow I will formally teach you how to practice. After Hinata arranged a room for Hulk that fits his figure, Rog used the portal magic to return to the secret nest in New York and had a pleasant dinner with Gwen. Because of the protests, Gwen hasn't done anything heroic for a long time. Now, she put most of her energy into her studies, doing what a female university student should do. The next morning, when Gwen went to class, Rog returned to the office at Konoha's headquarters and turned on the TV to watch the latest news reports. Basically, every news channel was reporting on his public declaration yesterday, and there were also many current affairs commentators who gave a detailed and tactful evaluation of his declaration yesterday. Meticulous meant that they had analyzed every single word he said. Euphemism means that they tacitly ignored the naked threat in it, and focused on the legitimacy of the protest and the discussion of Konoha's authority to act. At the end of the news, basically every news mentioned something that everyone knew, but there was some irony in it. The fierce protests that lasted for more than half a year all disappeared the day after Rog's declaration. There were no protests, no demonstrations, everything seemed to have returned to half a year ago. Chapter 410. In Rog's private practice room, Hulk, wearing special black shorts, excitedly waited for the arrival of Rog. After completely memorizing the cultivation contents of the first 5 gates of the 8 inner hidden gates, Hulk became more and more expectant of the power of the 8 inner hidden gates. Now, he has begun to fantasize about opening the 3rd gate of life, and his whole body exudes green light. Under Hulk's expectant face, Rog, who had just finished breakfast, came to the practice room. "How was your rest last night? Did you understand the content of the 8 inner hidden gates again?" Rog asked casually as he came in front of Hulk. "Yes." Hulk has reviewed the 8 inner hidden gates. Hulk likes the 8 inner hidden gates. Hulk waved his fist excitedly and answered with full spirit. "That's good. Since you have reviewed it, let's get started." After that, Rog explained to Hulk how to open the first gate of the 8 inner hidden gates. For Rog, opening the first gate of life is not difficult, because he only needs to accurately manipulate chakra to stimulate the brain nerves according to the cultivation content, and he can unlock the restrictions of the brain domain, allowing himself to exert 100% of his physical ability. However, this is not an easy thing for Hulk without chakra. However, Roger had already considered this, so he had prepared a plan for Hulk that was suitable for him. Gamma energy. The reason why Dr. Banner can transform from an ordinary person into Hulk is because Dr. Banner has been exposed to a lot of gamma energy radiation. This gamma energy radiation, which is enough to kill people, not only did it not take Dr. Banner's life, but it also completely transformed his body, allowing him to transform into the powerful Hulk when his emotions are excited and his heartbeat is accelerating. When Dr. Banner does not transform, the gamma energy in his body will be dormant like hibernation. When he transforms into Hulk, this gamma energy is completely awakened, and Hulk appears. To some extent, every cell in Hulk's body contains a lot of gamma energy. Although the gamma energy was not chakra, the gamma energy in Hulk's body was the same as the chakra in Rog's body. They both originated from their bodies. Therefore, this gamma energy could be considered as Hulk's unique chakra. This speculation has been repeatedly calculated by Hinata and finally proved to be correct. In addition, even if there is something wrong with Hinata's calculation, with Hulk's physical strength, he can completely resist all the consequences. Do you still remember the illusions I left in your mind when I first taught you how to fight? I remember. Hulk hasn't forgotten. Although Hulk didn't know why Rog suddenly mentioned this, he still answered Rog's question immediately. Now, I'm going to do the same thing to you again. But this time what I left for you is not some illusion of fighting, but a cultivation method, a method that will allow you to extract energy from your own body. Chakra is the product of the combination of physical energy and spiritual energy. Rog can't teach Hulk how to have spiritual energy, but he can teach Hulk how to extract physical energy, that is, how to extract the gamma energy in his body. As long as Hulk can successfully extract gamma energy from his own body and master this gamma energy, then the Hashiman Tanku will no longer have any barriers for Hulk to practice. No problem. Hulk nodded heavily, indicating that he understood. At the same time, Rog also changed his white eyes into 3 Tomo Sharingan. Then he used the first genjutsu he developed on Hulk. Sharingan Genjutsu, False Memory. In an instant, Hulk's spirit left the real world and came to an empty green space. Just as Hulk looked at this boundless green space in a daze, Rog's figure gradually appeared in front of him. This time will be different from the last time. Last time, I left you a teaching scene so that you can slowly learn and comprehend it. And this time, I'm going to force you a little bit. Hulk looked at Rog in front of him with a puzzled face. You will understand soon. As soon as his voice fell, a large section of chakra refining insights selected by Rog was forcibly stuffed into Hulk's mind. After yesterday's recitation incident, he no longer has any expectations for Hulk's comprehension and memory. Instead of slowly guiding Hulk to understand what is going on, it is better to forcibly instill his own insights into him. If it was an ordinary person, after suddenly having such a large piece of insight in his mind, it is inevitable that he will feel a headache and discomfort. However, Hulk, whose physique is far beyond ordinary people, is like nothing happened. It is as if he suddenly had a strange dream, experienced an experience that belongs to others, and gained a large piece of insight that belongs to others. This is how to refine your own body's energy, or how to refine energy from your own cells. In your cells, there is a large amount of gamma energy. If you want to practice the Hashiman Tanku, you need to learn how to refine and control this energy that is originally in your body, and use it as chakra. I have given you the method and insight, the rest is up to you. There is one more thing, if you can't learn it, you will not be able to leave this green space. As soon as his voice fell, Rog's figure turned into a group of black crows, flying in all directions, and finally disappeared completely in this empty green space. Rog's consciousness returned to his body, and Hulk's consciousness was trapped in the green space without an exit. At this time, Hulk was like a puppet that had lost its soul, standing motionless in the same place, like a completely super-realistic figurine. Unlike the previous genjutsu, False Memory, this genjutsu, False Memory will not be automatically lifted. Either Hulk mobilizes the gamma energy in his body to break through the genjutsu space, or he can only wait until the eye power left by Rog in his body is exhausted. Before coming to the cultivation room, Rog deliberately looked at the current Guinness Book of Records for the longest time without eating or drinking and surviving. This is the highest record of not eating or drinking that he found. Taking into account Hulk's physique that is far beyond that of ordinary people, he left enough eye power in Hulk's body to maintain genjutsu, False Memory, for a month. Hinata, monitor Hulk's vital signs at all times. If there is an accident, inform me immediately. Roger said to Hinata, who was everywhere, and then planned to leave the training room directly. However, Just as he was about to use quantum transmission to return directly to the office, Hulk in front of him suddenly moved. Before Rog had time to check the situation of the genjutsu in Hulk's body, a green light burst out from Hulk's body like a supernova explosion, instantly occupying all his sight. Boom! Chapter 411. Holy shit! Rog didn't expect that as soon as he told Hinata to pay attention to Hulk's situation, Hulk would have an accident immediately. What surprised him even more was that the green energy burst out so fast and powerful that he didn't even have time to cast a defensive ninjutsu. Just when the green energy that seemed to destroy everything hit him, Rog didn't hesitate and used his fastest teleportation skill. Flying Thor technique. Until now, Rog has mastered a total of 3 teleportation skills, namely, Flying Thor technique, quantum transmission, and teleportation gate magic. Among these 3 teleportation skills, Flying Thor is the fastest one, whether it's casting speed or teleportation speed. In just a moment, Rog was teleported from the practice room to his office. Then he felt a terrifying tremor that was not much weaker than a magnitude 9 earthquake. At this moment, the entire Konoha headquarters building shook violently, and cracks of different sizes appeared on the walls and floor. Fortunately, the terrifying tremors left as quickly as they came. Within a few seconds, the terrible vibration disappeared. Hinata, immediately calculate the damage and rescue the wounded. After instructing Hinata, Rog didn't wait for Hinata's reply and used the Flying Thor technique to return to the practice room. When he was on Sokka, he left a secret Flying Thor technique on Hulk. It's just that he didn't expect that after returning to Earth, he would still need to use this Flying Thor technique. When Rog returned to the practice room, he saw a broken room that seemed to have been bombed by dozens of missiles. If he wasn't certain that this was his specially enhanced private training room, Rog would have suspected that he had come to a battlefield in the Middle East that was constantly at war all year round. The originally bright and clean practice room was like a dilapidated dark basement at this time, with broken walls and scattered rubble everywhere. In the center of this broken wall, with only a faint red light, stood a tall figure with eyes that constantly emitted a strange green light. Rog's reason told him that the figure was Hulk. However, Hulk's demon-like eyes, as well as the terrifying aura he emitted, made him hesitate. The person standing in front of him now is not so much Hulk, but a demon that occupied Hulk's body. At this time, Rog's mind appeared in the form of Hulk that only appeared in the parallel world. Demon Hulk. Or rather, the immortal Hulk. Damn it, I'm not that unlucky, right? Looking at Hulk not far away without any movement, Rog sighed helplessly. He was just teaching Hulk how to refine and control the gamma energy in his body. How did it end up like this? Although Hinata hasn't counted the damage to Konoha headquarters, Rog can roughly imagine what the current Konoha's headquarters looks like. It probably wouldn't be any better than S.H.I.E.L.D.'s triple curved wing headquarters, which he had destroyed back then. Hulk, are you okay? Roger shouted at Hulk, who was not far away from him. After waiting patiently for a few seconds, Rog didn't hear any answer from Hulk. At this time, Hulk not only didn't answer his question, but his body didn't even move. After thinking quickly in his mind for a few seconds, Rog immediately made a decision. No matter what kind of state Hulk is in now, he must take Hulk away from Konoha headquarters as soon as possible. Konoha's headquarters, which has been destroyed by a terrifying explosion once, can't withstand the second damage brought by Hulk. After making up his mind, Rog's spirit quickly connected to the Flying Thor technique on Hulk's body and the Flying Thor technique he left in an unknown forest in the suburbs of New York. Let Hulk stay away from the crowd and the city first, and then solve Hulk's strange state. Rog's mind moved and he used the Flying Thor. In the blink of an eye, he came behind Hulk like a ghost and stretched out his right hand towards Hulk's shoulder. As long as he can grab Hulk's shoulder, he can use the Flying Thor to take Hulk away from here completely. However, just as his right hand was about to grab Hulk's shoulder, Hulk, who was motionless, showed a shocking reaction speed. Turn around. Punch. Hulk, with his amazing size, was like an extremely dexterous assassin at this time, completing a series of movements between turning around and punching in an instant. The right fist, which was bigger than Rog's head, hit his right hand like a cannonball. Damn it. He doesn't know why, but at this time, Hulk made Rog feel the momentum of Thanos. In order to avoid his right hand being hit by Hulk's right fist, he had no choice but to give up. Lightning body flicker. The silver-white electric snake appeared, and Rog's figure disappeared instantly. In the next second, Hulk's right fist passed through these remaining electric snakes in place, and the gamma energy covered on his right fist hit the wall that was already full of holes like a laser cannon. Boom! Without any suspense, this wall, which was specially reinforced with steel, shattered with a loud bang in front of the laser cannon-like gamma energy. The steel plate, which was 5 or 6 centimeters in size, was punched out by Hulk with a hole of tens of centimeters. Is this still Hulk? At this moment, Rog even felt that the person in front of him was not Hulk, but some super scion. Hulk, who didn't know any energy attacks before, now showed an extremely skilled energy attack. Although Hulk only used his right fist to launch an energy attack like a laser cannon, the energy control skills involved were not much worse than Chidori and Rasengan. Using the lightning body flicker, Rog smoothly dodged Hulk's punch and successfully opened a distance of more than 10 meters from Hulk. Looking at the steel plate that was punched out by Hulk, his face began to become very serious. Before Hulk retracted his right fist, Rog took out a flying Thor kunai from the ninja tool bag, and then took a deep breath. Lightning body flicker. Without any hesitation, Rog rushed towards Hulk again. Just like before, just when he was about to reach in front of Hulk, whose eyes were emitting green light, once again punched out his right fist towards him. Flying Thor. Just as Hulk punched, Rog's figure disappeared in front of him and flashed behind Hulk. If it was the previous Hulk, it would have been impossible for him to keep up with Rog's speed, and he could only helplessly endure the attacks from behind. However, the current Hulk is completely different from the previous Hulk. Just when Rog had just arrived behind him with the flying Thunder God, Hulk once again showed dexterity and speed that were completely different from before, forcibly turning his body and facing Rog head-on. Hulk's instantaneous turn was completely within Rog's expectations. He had already seen it once, so how could he overlook this point? The speed of Hulk's turn can't be said to be slow, but at the moment when he just showed signs of turning around, Rog threw out the flying Thor kunai in his hand. Hulk completed his turn in an instant, and the flying Thor kunai thrown by Rog also flew over his shoulder at the same moment. Flying Thor second Dan. At the moment when the flying Thor kunai flew over Hulk's shoulder, Rog, who used the flying Thor second Dan, grabbed the handle of the flying Thor kunai with his right hand and grabbed Hulk's shoulder with his left hand. Flying Thor. At the moment when his left hand successfully touched Hulk's shoulder, Rog once again used the flying Thor. Chapter 412. In the suburbs of New York, in an unknown, undeveloped forest. Relying on the continuous cooperation between the Flying Thor and the Flying Thor, Rog successfully brought the suspected Demon Hulk away from the Konoha headquarters and came to this unknown forest with few people. After bringing Hulk into the forest, Rog didn't stay too long with Hulk and once again used the lightning chakra blink to open the distance. Then he carefully perceived Hulk's current state. Chakra perception technique. Rog first used chakra perception technique to confirm Hulk's current state. As before, the life energy in Hulk's body was so rich that it was not like a normal creature. In addition, Rog also sensed the active gamma energy in Hulk's body for the first time. In the past, the gamma energy in Hulk's body would fuse with Hulk's life energy in the form of cell energy and vitality. At this time, the gamma energy showed its original active state for the first time. In Rog's perception, the gamma energy in Hulk's body was like a gamma star, always in a sun-like nuclear fusion state, constantly emitting heat. The reason why Hulk's eyes showed this demon-like green light was because the gamma energy in his body was too active. In terms of life form, the current Hulk can be said to be too healthy, and there is no sign of his body collapsing or being damaged by gamma energy. There is nothing wrong with Hulk's body, and he is even stronger than he has ever been. But his mental state is not good at all. Rog is now completely unable to sense the eye power he left in Hulk's body, and he can't sense Hulk's consciousness. According to common sense, Hulk should have completely gotten rid of the shackles of genjutsu, false memory at this time. However, the mental state that Hulk displayed was completely different from that. The current Hulk, rather than using his consciousness to control his body, is more like his instinct to control his body. Whether it is the illogical reaction speed and dexterous movements he showed before, or his skillful energy manipulation skills, they are all like his body's instinctive reaction, not his conscious control. Hey big guy. Although I don't know what's wrong with you, I can't let you continue like this. Rog shouted at Hulk, then continued, so if I hit you harder later, don't blame me when you wake up. After saying that, Rog didn't care whether Hulk could understand him or not and directly mobilized the chakra in his body. However, it was different from the past. This time, he did not use his own chakra, but the nine-tailed chakra. In an instant, the blood-red nine-tailed chakra gushed out from his body like a flaming tornado. After practicing in Konoha for half a year, the resonance between him and QB has improved a little. Resonance degree 4. This was the degree of resonance between him and Nine-Tails half a year ago. Resonance degree 6. This was his harvest after half a year of hard work in Konoha. Of course, the harvest of half a year of hard work is not only the improvement of the resonance degree, but also the amount of chakra in his body has improved a little. Because of the further development of the sage body, the amount of chakra in his body has also increased from 5 tails to 6 tails. It has reached a perfect balance with the amount of chakra that he can control now. The degree of resonance with QB has further strengthened, and it has not only brought about a change in the amount of chakra. More importantly, it has allowed him to master the simple and violent nine-tailed mode. To be precise, it is not the nine-tailed mode, but a state of balance between berserk and non-berserk. With the continuous emergence of QB chakra, Rog's body was covered with a layer of blood-red chakra coat. At the same time, 6 tails composed entirely of chakra emerged from his back waist. Chakra materialization, this is not a strange experience for Rog. Susanoo is a huge human form formed by chakra. However, compared with Susanoo, QB chakra materialization is relatively more painful. Susanoo uses its own chakra, so even if there is some pain, it is not particularly strong. But QB's chakra is completely different. This is a chakra that comes from the outside world, and there is a natural sense of rejection with his own body. If he wants to completely eliminate the pain caused by QB chakra materialization, he must establish a perfect bond with QB, that is, after the resonance degree reaches 9, these side effects will be completely eliminated. Although being covered by QB chakra will bring constant pain, this pain is still within the range of Rog's tolerance. When the 6-tailed QB chakra coat on Rog's body was completely formed, Hulk, who was only passively attacking, took the initiative for the first time. Although he is not sure whether the current Hulk is the so-called Demon Hulk, Rog has decided to treat him as the Demon Hulk. This is the main reason why he used the incomplete QB mode. To deal with this Demon Hulk, who can release gamma energy at any time, QB mode will be more useful than Sage mode. Of course, this is also related to him wanting to violently awaken Hulk's consciousness. There is no need for any communication. The moment Rog's QB chakra coat was formed, Demon Hulk with green eyes rushed towards him like a high-speed train. Facing the prehistoric behemoth-like Demon Hulk, Rog did not have any intention of retreating or dodging, and also rushed towards Demon Hulk. The distance of dozens of meters passed in the blink of an eye. Demon Hulk's right fist covered in gamma energy collided with Rog's right fist covered in QB chakra. In the next second, there was a loud collision sound that resounded through the sky. Rumble! 2 fists that completely broke through the speed of sound and carried infinite energy collided. Sonic booms, collision sounds, explosion sounds, 3 completely different sounds merged together and evolved into a terrifying sound that can't be described with words. The shock wave was like a tsunami that passed through everything in the surroundings, lifting the nearby soil, stones, and trees. The red and green energy that intertwined like camouflage bloomed with a dazzling light like a nuclear explosion. The air vibrated and ripples visible to the naked eye, and the earth shook crazily like an earthquake. Hulk and Rog did not hold back at all, and crazily released their respective energy. Gamma energy and Cubi chakra displayed their terrifying power, announcing their existence to the whole world. Chapter 413. The first time they fought, they were evenly matched. Rog's nine-tailed chakra and Hulk's gamma energy couldn't suppress each other. Almost at the same time, they attacked each other again. Rumble! Rog's left fist and Hulk's left fist collided fiercely. Another explosion resounded through the sky. Red and green violent energies wreaked havoc in the air. The originally messy forest, under the erosion of the energy storm, directly changed the terrain. The plants and soil on the surface completely disappeared, and the earth seemed to have been directly cut off, and a circular pit with a diameter of hundreds of meters appeared out of thin air. After another tie, Rog and Hulk chose to retreat at the same time. If it was the previous Hulk, he would never choose to retreat. However, at this time, he was completely following his instincts to fight, and for the first time, he made an unprecedented retreat that he would never consider in the past. After pulling away, Rog and Hulk seriously looked at each other. In the previous fight, neither of them had the upper hand. However, they both knew the approximate level of each other's current strength. In terms of physical strength, Rog was not as good as Hulk. However, the existence of the nine-tailed chakra coat made up for his lack of physical strength. Similarly, in terms of energy intensity, Hulk was not as good as Rog. However, the appearance of gamma energy gave him the confidence to compete with Rog. After a few seconds of confrontation, Rog and Hulk launched a second wave of attacks at the same time. More coincidentally, this time, they both chose to attack from a distance. Hulk's incomparably thick right arm was instantly enveloped by green gamma energy, like an energy cannon barrel that was accumulating energy. At the same time, Rog, who was wearing the nine-tailed chakra coat, controlled the six tails behind him. At the end of the tails, fist-sized red and blue chakra balls emerged, floating in the air like bubbles. The red chakra balls were condensed from the nine-tailed chakra. The light blue chakra balls were condensed from Rog's own chakra. When these red and blue chakra balls covered all the space around Rog, these chakra balls, which were just quietly floating, suddenly flew in the same direction, as if they were forcibly attracted by an invisible black hole. Bijadama. Rog was preparing to use Bijadama. The use of the nine-tailed chakra can be divided into two types. One is the nine-tailed chakra mode, which is the so-called nine-tailed mode. Nine-tailed mode is still not used by Rog yet. The other is the tailed beast mode he is now. Under normal circumstances, tailed chakra, 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 chakra. In this state, chakra will become violent and aggressive because of the appearance of the tailed chakra. Rog is now in the first stage of the tailed beast mode, the tailed chakra coat stage. After the first stage, the body shape will change significantly, and the color of the tailed chakra will change into a dark red half-tailed beast mode. In the half-tailed beast mode, although chakra will still maintain a roughly human shape, he will fall into a berserk state, and his attack style will be more inclined to the real tailed beast. More importantly, in the half-tailed beast mode, chakra can use an incomplete Bijadama. After the half-tailed beast mode, it is the complete tailed beast mode. In this state, chakra can transform into a tailed beast, showing the complete tailed beast form, and exert 100% of the tailed beast's power, as well as the complete form of Bijadama. Rog, who is only in the first stage of the chakra coat stage, can't use the incomplete Bijadama that can only be used in the half-tailed beast mode. However, compared with other chakra, he has a unique and special trump card: Sharingan and Senjutsu. Of course, it can also be understood as Sharingan and Mokuton. The power of Sharingan and the vitality given by Senjutsu allow him to suppress the berserk side effect of the tailed beast chakra to the greatest extent. Therefore, at this time, although he has not entered the half-tailed beast mode, this does not affect him in the slightest to use the incomplete Bijadama that can only be used in the half-tailed beast mode. The red and blue chakra balls quickly merge together, turning into a basketball-sized black chakra ball. However, in the next second, the black chakra ball began to shrink rapidly, from the size of a basketball to the size of a thumb. Looking at the black chakra ball floating in front of his mouth, Rog hesitated for a second or two. However, in the end, he opened his mouth and ate the black chakra ball that was only the size of a thumb. Strictly speaking, this is not eating, but the necessary process before launching the Bijadama. After all, it is impossible for him to open his mouth and take out a Bijadama like a complete-tailed beast. Therefore, before launching, he needs to do some extra preparations. When Rog swallowed the black chakra ball, Hulk in the distance also made the final preparations. His entire right arm became dazzling, as if it was made of gamma energy. A long time ago, Rog was curious about a question. That is, what kind of experience is it to swallow an incomplete Bijadama? Today, he finally knows the answer to this question. To describe it in one word, it is bursting. When he swallowed the incomplete Bijadama, he felt that his body was like a balloon that was about to burst due to the Bijadama's chakra, and his whole body was filled to the brim. Just when his whole body was about to burst by the chakra, he opened his mouth. Roar! This is not the sound made by Rog, but the incomplete Bijadama that flew out of his mouth and cut through the air. After launching the incomplete Bijadama out of his mouth, Rog's whole body suddenly became incomparably relaxed. That feeling of bursting body quickly disappeared along with the launch of the Bijadama. When Rog launched the Bijadama out of his mouth, Hulk in the distance also launched his strongest punch. A gamma energy beam that looked like the main cannon of a battleship gushed out from Hulk's right fist and flew straight toward the oncoming Bijadama. Although Roger shot out a thumb-sized Bijadama, but with its terrifying flying speed, it left behind afterimages in the air, forming a scene similar to an energy beam. In just a blink of an eye, the Bijadama launched by Rog collided with the gamma energy beam released by Hulk. In the next moment, the dazzling light that enveloped everything became the only color in the world. The dazzling white light completely covered the vision of Rog and Hulk. At this time, the only thing they could feel was the terrifying energy storm that was like a natural disaster. Chapter 4:14. Like a mushroom cloud, an energy storm rose to the sky. Hurricanes, earthquakes, shock waves, high temperatures, and other phenomena were born at the same time, forming a terrifying scene like a nuclear explosion. As the two people closest to the explosion point, Rog and Hulk immediately felt the amazing power of the collision between the incomplete Bijadama and the gamma energy. In order to prevent themselves from inexplicably dying in this amazing explosion, a huge amount of energy gushed out from their bodies at the same time, wrapping themselves in layers. The red and green energy storm destroyed everything around it like a natural disaster. The mushroom cloud that rose to the sky was still clearly visible even from tens of miles away. As the initiators of this energy storm, Rog and Hulk did not expect that after the incomplete Bijadama and the gamma energy collided, such a powerful energy storm would erupt. Now, they were like two small boats floating in the turbulent sea, in danger of being swallowed by the monstrous waves at any time. Rog tried his best to stabilize his body to avoid being directly blown away by the energy storm. But his persistence only lasted for a short 2 to 3 seconds, and was destroyed by the shock waves set off by the energy storm. Rog, who was covered with the 9-tailed chakra coat, was blown away. Hulk, who burst out with the gamma energy, was not any better. However, at this time, Rog did not have extra energy to pay attention to Hulk's situation. In the end, relying on the 9-tailed chakra coat and the amazing recovery ability of the immortal body, he landed on the ground safely. The shock waves and hurricanes brought by the energy storm blew him hundreds of meters away, making him completely away from his original position. After he landed again, the energy storm, which was not as powerful as a nuclear explosion, finally came to an end and quickly dissipated in the air. When the dazzling light, hurricanes, earthquakes, and other phenomena all disappeared, Rog finally had time to slowly look at the surrounding scenery. This used to be an unexplored forest, but now, the forest had completely disappeared. Instead, there was a huge explosion crater with a diameter of several kilometers. A thick layer of the ground was directly shaved off, and the trees outside the explosion crater were also uprooted by the shock waves and hurricanes, falling and scattered on the ground. Compared to the diameter of the explosion crater, the depth of the explosion crater was not worth mentioning, only about 10 to 20 meters. When the soil, stones, branches, and other things that were blown away fell like raindrops, Rog began to look for traces of Hulk. However, after glancing around the explosion crater, he found nothing and did not see Hulk at all. Was he blown away or buried? Rog thought for a few seconds, then directly activated Byakugan. Byakugan. The veins on the sides of his eyes bulged as he activated his 3 supervision abilities: long sight, X-ray, and insight. Under Byakugan's supervision, Rog finally saw Hulk buried in the soil. Hulk had been found, but Roger's expression had also become somewhat unsightly. At this time, Hulk's body was still emitting green gamma energy, but the color was much dimmer. However, this was not the main reason why his face became ugly. Hulk's right hand was gone. It was not an injury, nor was it a fracture. It had completely disappeared. This should not be. Rog was very clear about how strong the energy storm was, so he was even more certain that Hulk, who had the protection of the gamma energy, would never lose his right hand because of the explosion of the energy storm. Even he, whose physique was not as good as Hulk's, was not seriously injured by the energy storm. Of course, it was impossible for Hulk's right hand to be directly taken away by the energy storm. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with this unexpected situation that had completely exceeded his expectations, Hulk, who was buried in the soil, moved again and struggled to climb out of the mound. When Hulk stood up again, his pair of eyes that were emitting green light looked at the wound on his right arm. Then, under Rog's gaze, the cut on Hulk's right arm grew crazily as if it had mutated. Within a few seconds, Hulk's right hand that had disappeared grew back again. This works too? Rog, who witnessed the whole regeneration process, had an incredulous look on his face. Is this still King Hulk? This regeneration ability is not Hulk at all. Looking at Hulk's right hand that had recovered as before, Rog suddenly had a feeling that he seemed to have awakened a demon that had been sleeping for a long time. Forget it, don't think about it. Let's wake up the real Hulk first. After making up his mind, Rog took a deep breath and ran towards Hulk. At this time, he did not use the body flicker technique. With the 9-tailed chakra coat, he did not need to use the body flicker technique at all. In this state, his speed was not slower than the body flicker technique. In fact, it was even faster. In the blink of an eye, he crossed a distance of hundreds of meters and flashed in front of Hulk, who was emitting green light. Just like before, after discovering Rog's arrival, Hulk did not hesitate and directly attacked him. Hulk's right fist, which had just regenerated, hit Rog like a cannonball out of the barrel. However, just when his right fist, which was bigger than Rog's head and contained a lot of gamma energy, was about to hit Rog, Rog showed the results of his hard work in Konoha Hidden Village for half a year. 8 trigrams Palm, Revolving Heaven. 8 trigrams Palm, Revolving Heaven is a high-level secret taijutsu of the Hyuga clan main family, which has the name of Absolute Defense. Although in the world of Naruto, there are several moves with the name of Absolute Defense. However, on the level of taijutsu, 8 trigrams Palm, Revolving Heaven, which can reflect all physical attacks, does not disgrace this name. Rog's chakra acupoints in his body instantly released a lot of chakra, and his whole body rotated at high speed like a top, instantly creating a hemispherical light blue chakra shield. Although Hulk's right fist contains a lot of gamma energy, his right fist is always in a real physical form. As long as it is a physical attack, Rog is confident that he can bounce it back with Revolving Heaven. As Rog expected, Hulk's right fist hit the hemispherical chakra shield formed by Revolving Heaven. Then, it was bounced back by the high-speed rotation of chakra shield. The huge rebound force made Hulk involuntarily step back a few steps, and his footsteps became a little staggered. If it weren't for Hulk's huge body and the existence of gamma energy in his body, Rog's 8 trigrams Palm Revolving Heaven would have been enough to bounce him back. Although Revolving Heaven did not completely bounce Hulk back, it did not affect Rog's next plan in the slightest. Just after Hulk staggered back, Rog stepped forward like Hulk's shadow, and the Kyuubi chakra in his palms was instantly replaced by his own chakra. Soft Fist 8 trigrams Palm. Chapter 415. Like the 8 trigrams palm, revolving heaven, the soft fist technique, 8 trigrams 64 palms is also a secret taijutsu passed down from generation to generation in the Hyuga clan. By attacking the 64 acupoints in the enemy's body, it seals the enemy's chakra flow and causes damage to the enemy's meridian system. Before performing, it is necessary to construct a huge 8 trigrams diagram in the user's mind with himself as the center. The size of the 8 trigrams diagram determines the attack range of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. Due to the difference in strength, the size of the 8 trigrams diagram constructed by each user is different. When he was training hard in Konoha Hidden Village, Rog tested the size of his 8 trigrams diagram. With his position as the center, the range within a radius of 10 meters is within the attack range of his 8 trigrams diagram. Once beyond this distance, his 8 trigrams 64 palms will be at risk of being interrupted. Unlike other moves, if all the 8 trigrams 64 palms cannot hit the opponent, the power of the attack will be significantly reduced. Therefore, whether or not all the 64 palms can be completed becomes the key to whether or not the full power of this move can be fully exerted. Under normal circumstances, Rog will not let the opponent be more than 10 meters away from him, resulting in the interruption of his 8 trigrams 64 palms. However, no one can be sure whether or not accidents will happen in the battle. What Rog can do is to ensure that the 64 palms combo will not be interrupted as much as possible. After approaching the retreating Hulk like a shadow, Rog did not hesitate. His hands were like bullets fired from a Gatling gun, hitting Hulk's body like a storm, forcing Hulk, who was already staggering, to retreat. 2 palms, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms. Relying on the lightning-like speed of his palms, Rog finished the first 16 palms in an instant and hit his chakra into several key acupoints in Hulk's body. Rog's attack speed at this time was fast enough that even Hulk, who was being attacked, could not see his every punch clearly. But for Rog himself, his current palm speed is still too slow, so slow that it makes him dissatisfied. If he was facing a human ninja who had chakra like him, then he would have finished the 8 trigrams 64 palms by now. 8 trigrams 64 palms is a taijutsu that was developed based on the physical condition of a normal human ninja. Therefore, when facing these enemies, there was no need to make any changes to the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams. Because every human ninja's meridian system is the same, the location of the chakra acupoints is also the same. There will never be a situation where the same chakra acupoints appear in different locations. However, what Rog is facing now is not a human ninja, not even a human. Through his Byakugan's X-ray vision, he could clearly see how the gamma energy was flowing through Hulk's body. He knew what form the gamma energy was in and how it was flowing through Hulk's body. To seal the chakra flow of a human ninja, he only needs to attack the 64 chakra acupoints that have long been thoroughly studied. However, if he wants to use his own chakra to seal the gamma energy flow in Hulk's body, Rog needs to find the critical 64 flow nodes again. This also means that he must find these critical energy flow nodes through Byakugan in the shortest time, and use his own chakra to seal the gamma energy flow in Hulk's body through the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. This kind of thing doesn't seem to be particularly difficult, but it's not easy at all to actually implement it. At this time, Rog is not so much performing the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams 64 palms that he has practiced. It's better to say that he is looking for the key acupoints in Hulk's body while performing the 64 palms tailored for Hulk. In principle, the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams 64 palms that he is currently performing is no different from the Hyuga clans. But in terms of operational difficulty, his current 64 palms of the 8 trigrams 64 palms is several orders of magnitude higher than the Hyuga clans. This is the main reason why he is dissatisfied with the speed of his current palm strike. If it was the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams 64 palms under normal circumstances, he would have finished all 64 palms by now instead of just finishing the first 16 palms. But fortunately, Hulk hasn't been able to react at this time. Of course, it's also possible that he has already reacted, but he was temporarily unable to resist Rog's rapid attacks. 32 palms. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Rog finished the next 16 palms. When Rog completely finished the 32 palms, Hulk finally found the opportunity to raise his hand and counterattack. However, before he could fully raise his hands, he was forcibly interrupted by Rog, who noticed it in advance. Although raising your hand and punching seems to be a very simple action, in order to complete this simple action, it requires the cooperation of multiple muscle groups in the body to complete this seemingly simple action. In front of Rog, who activated the Byakugan, Hulk's attempt to raise his hand triggered a muscle reaction, which was caught by him in time. In order to interrupt Hulk's idea of counterattack that he shouldn't have, and in order not to interrupt the chain of 64 palms, he even silently adjusted the order of the palms, and the attack that was originally supposed to be made after 50 palms were made in advance. In order to destroy the mobilized muscle groups that Hulk needed to raise his hand in advance, and before the counterattack was formed, he would resolve this counterattack that would occur in the future. At this time, Hulk didn't expect that his actions would be seen through in advance, and the only chance to counterattack was lost in his hands. After neutralizing the counterattack that Hulk had yet to unleash, Roger once again increased the speed of his palm strike, venting the remaining attack onto Hulk's body. 64 palms. When he made the last palm strike, Rog's right palm not only hit his chakra into Hulk's body, but also used all the strength in his body to hit Hulk's chest fiercely, sending him flying. When all 64 palms of the 8 trigrams were finished, Rog did not immediately pursue Hulk, who was sent flying, but stood in place and roared. 64 palms of the 8 trigrams, he has made hundreds of thousands of palms in Konoha Hidden Village. But there had never been a time like this that made him feel such unrestrained pleasure. 8 seconds. This was the time from when he got close to Hulk, to when he finished the 64 palms and sent Hulk flying. In this short 8 seconds, he first used the Byakugan to observe the gamma energy flow in Hulk's body in detail, and then according to Hulk's actual situation, he found the 64 key acupoints. And finally, all the 64 palms of the 8 trigrams were hit on the established acupoints, completing the first battle of the 8 trigrams' 64 palms. Chapter 416. After venting the uncontrollable excitement in his heart, Rog came to the front of Hulk, who had been blasted away for dozens of meters. At this time, Hulk no longer looked the same as before. Although there were no obvious scars on the surface of his body, the green light emitted from Hulk's body had completely disappeared. Not only that, but now Hulk has also lost consciousness in the true sense, lying motionless in the huge crater. Unlike before, although there was no self-consciousness, he was moving under the instinctive control of the body. The damage caused by using Hyuga Soft Fist can only be seen on the surface of the body. It is impossible to accurately see the real damage. In order to confirm Hulk's true state at this time, Rog used the Byakugan's ability to see through Hulk's internal injuries in detail. Of course, when observing Hulk's physical injuries, he took the initiative to avoid some key parts of the lower body, so as not to leave any indelible shadow in his heart. Rog is a very confident man, but his confidence is only based on the situation of normal human beings. Mutant creatures and alien races are not in his comparison standards. It's the same as you can't compare a mouse with a tiger in terms of physique and strength. Although they are both mammals, this comparison is unfair to them. After carefully observing the injuries in Hulk's body with the Byakugan and confirming that he did not leave any irreparable serious injuries to Hulk, Rog removed the Kyubi chakra coat from his body and closed the Byakugan. It's finally done. Looking at Hulk, who had completely fainted, Rog finally breathed a sigh of relief. He didn't think that just teaching Hulk how to refine gamma energy would cause such troublesome consequences. This also made him seriously consider a problem, that is, whether to teach Hulk the practice content of the last 3 gates of Hashimoto Tanku. If the abnormal Hulk, who is very similar to the demon Hulk, opens Hashimoto Tanku, then even if he uses all his cards, he doesn't have much confidence to completely subdue Hulk without harming his life. After taking a look at the crater that looked like it was caused by a nuclear explosion, Rog's body shone with a brilliant aurora-like light. He constructed a hemispherical quantum energy shield, completely enveloping himself and Hulk. In the next second, the brilliant hemispherical quantum energy shield disappeared, and the figures of Rog and Hulk also disappeared completely. After making such a big movement in this unknown forest, as long as the staff of the NSA and the military haven't collectively resigned, then they must have sent an action team here by now. Rog, who had just threatened the military yesterday, doesn't want to meet with these officials. If he could, he even hoped that these officials would ignore what happened in the forest. But he knew that this was just an unrealistic fantasy. Although the energy storm caused by the collision between the incomplete Bijadama and the gamma energy had dissipated, the energy radiation from the explosions still filled every corner of the crater. As long as these official organizations investigated a little, they would be able to find out that the terrifying explosion just now was caused by him and Hulk. But this is not a particularly troublesome thing. It will only slightly stimulate the already sensitive nerves of these officials. Rog didn't take Hulk directly back to Konoha's headquarters, but took Hulk to another unknown forest far away from New York. Before Hulk woke up and figured out what happened to him, Rog would never take Hulk back to Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters. He didn't want to destroy his largest base on Earth. Before Hulk woke up, Rog took the time to go to the supermarket in a nearby city and bought some necessities for outdoor life and barbecue. If there is no accident, Hulk won't be able to return to Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters and the Federation headquarters before he completely put an end to the hidden dangers. When night fell, Rog began his traditional craft, barbecue. He didn't know if Hulk finally slept enough or was awakened by the aroma of barbecue. When Rog just baked the first barbecue, Hulk woke up. Eat something first. You should be hungry by now. After that, Rog handed the barbecue in his hand to Hulk. At this time, Hulk didn't seem to be fully awake. He took the barbecue handed by Rog with confused eyes and instinctively ate it. In the following time, Rog and Hulk didn't speak and silently enjoyed tonight's barbecue dinner. The sizzling sound of the barbecue and the sound of insects in the distance became the only sounds at this time. When the two of them worked together to kill a large amount of barbecue that was enough for more than a dozen strong men to eat, Rog finally said the second sentence of the night. Do you remember what happened before? Hulk can see what happened outside. Hulk can't control his body. Perhaps he felt that he lost control again. Hulk's mood was a little low at this time, and there was an unspeakable grievance in his tone. It's not your fault. Strictly speaking, I'm the main person in charge of this accident. I trapped your consciousness in the illusion space, which caused all of this to happen. Looking at Hulk's depressed face, Rog comforted him. At the same time, he picked up 2 cans of cold beer and threw one of them to Hulk, who was sitting opposite him. After opening the beer and taking a sip, he continued to ask, after I left the illusion space, what happened? Hulk refined energy according to the method you taught. Hulk refined gamma energy. But this energy was not controlled by Hulk, and it took over Hulk's body. Hulk tried his best to explain, but he didn't understand why his body was forcibly controlled by gamma energy. When you refined gamma energy and your body was controlled by gamma energy, did you see a green light door, or feel the existence of other consciousness? This question is very important to Rog. If Hulk really saw the green light, or felt the existence of other consciousness, it means that under everything that originally only existed in the parallel universe really appeared. Although this universe is chaotic enough, the appearance of another under everything is not a particularly serious matter. But this kind of extremely troublesome existence, if it cannot appear, it is best not to appear. No, Hulk didn't see the green light door, nor did he feel any other consciousness. Hulk seriously recalled for a moment before replying with absolute certainty. That's good. That's a good thing. Without the green light door and under everything, there is only one reason why Hulk went berserk before. Chapter 417. Since it was not caused by under everything, then the only reasonable explanation was that Hulk had refined too much gamma energy, causing him to lose control of his body. It was extremely easy to lose control of one's body when there was too much gamma energy in one's body. Such cases of loss of control were not rare. However, whether Hulk's previous loss of control was really related to him refining too much gamma energy, Rog could not give a 100% answer yet. Energy overload may only be one of the reasons for Hulk's loss of control. As for whether there were other secrets behind this loss of control, neither Hulk nor Rog knew for the time being. Can you still refine gamma energy now? You don't have to refine a lot, just a little bit will do, just like this. After saying that, Rog covered his right hand with the light blue chakra, making the chakra look like a light blue flame burning in his palm. Hulk doesn't know, Hulk can try. After experiencing the previous loss of control, Hulk had some instinctive repulsion towards refining gamma energy. But he didn't want to disappoint Rog, so he copied Rog's appearance, raised his huge right hand, and began to refine gamma energy in his body. At this time, Hulk showed a rare cautious expression, looking at his right hand with a serious face. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, time passed little by little, but there was no change in Hulk's raised right hand, neither gamma energy nor green light emitted from it. Rog did not rush Hulk, but patiently waited for the final structure. Hulk worked very hard for more than 20 seconds, but there was still no change in his right hand. Just when Hulk was about to give up, Rog's voice suddenly sounded. "Look at me." Hulk looked at Rog, and his eyes were unconsciously attracted by Rog's 3-tomo Sharingan. Don't try to control it too deliberately, just like breathing, whether you control it or not, your body will instinctively breathe in and out. At this time, Rog was like a psychiatrist, guiding Hulk with a gentle tone. At the same time, he also silently used the hypnotic ability of Sharingan, making Hulk unconsciously enter a hypnotic state. Gamma energy is the energy you were born with. It's like a cell, existing in every corner of your body. It will be like blood, flowing silently through every blood vessel in your body. Usually, you can't feel its existence. But when you need it, it will appear immediately to strengthen you and heal your injuries. Feel it, accept it. Just like controlling your own breathing, follow its rhythm and slowly control it. If it wasn't for the fact that they were in the middle of nowhere and that he was facing Hulk, Rog felt that he was like a charlatan trying to trick people into joining an unreliable church. Under Rog's hypnosis and guidance, Hulk gradually relaxed, no longer deliberately refining gamma energy, and no longer repelling the gamma energy that was born with him. Slowly, in Hulk's empty right hand, a faint gas-like gamma energy slowly appeared, and a soft green light lit up little by little. Finally, this gas-like gamma energy converged into a flame-like ionic state, covering Hulk's entire right hand. When Hulk's right hand successfully condensed gamma energy, Rog ended the hypnosis and guidance of Sharingan. Hulk did it, Hulk did it. At first, Hulk looked at the gamma energy on his right hand with some disbelief. After confirming that it was the gamma energy that he had refined and condensed, he said excitedly to Rog, "Yes, you did it." Looking at Hulk, who was like getting a new toy, Rog smiled with relief. In the following time, Rog struck the iron while it was hot and shared with Hulk some of his experience in controlling chakra. 3 days passed in a blink of an eye, and when Hulk thoroughly mastered the technique of refining and controlling gamma energy, Rog took Hulk back to the headquarters of the replicas. After these 3 days of special training, Hulk can finally use the gamma energy in his body as chakra. More importantly, he, who has mastered the method of refining and controlling gamma energy, finally doesn't have to worry about losing control because of gamma energy. As long as he doesn't refine excessive gamma energy that he can't control at once, the previous state of losing control will not happen again. After using the portal magic to bring Hulk back to the headquarters, Rog wanted to directly return to the headquarters of Konoha's intelligence agency. However, before he had time to leave, Tani hurried to him. "Where have you been these days? Did you do the big explosion in the suburbs of New York?" Tani glanced at Hulk, whose appearance hasn't changed, but he always felt a little different, and then asked Rog. "We stayed in a forest for 3 days and gave Hulk some special training. As for the big explosion you mentioned, if there were no other big explosions in the past few days, then the explosion you mentioned was done by me and Hulk." Rog didn't explain to Tani why he and Hulk made such a powerful explosion. This kind of thing, the more he explained, the more complicated it would be. Although Rog didn't directly explain the reason, Tani immediately thought of something and again looked at Hulk, who felt a little different. Next time, if you have any special activities, can you let me know first? Do you know what the outside media is saying about the big explosion now? A nuclear attack from an enemy country. They almost described this big explosion as the fuse of World War III. Although Tani was very clear that the explosion had nothing to do with a nuclear attack, the ordinary people and the media didn't think so. Especially when the National Security Agency and the military jointly investigated the scene, but no information was released to the public. That was an accident, it shouldn't happen again in the future. Rog didn't dare to guarantee anything to Tani. No one could be sure about such things. Shouldn't? Your answer is really reassuring, Tani said with some dissatisfaction, then continued. About the explosion, I will let the media under my command appease the public, so that they won't be used by some people with ulterior motives. Although Tani didn't say it explicitly, Rog knew that the people with ulterior motives he was talking about were the Skrull people who wanted to see the world in chaos. In addition, the identification device you mentioned has a little problem now. I need a live research subject, if not, a dead one will do. Chapter 418. Rog doesn't have any talent in scientific research and development, but he can be a reliable assistant. No problem, I will get you a living Skrull as soon as possible. After chatting with Tani for a while, Rog opened the portal again and returned to Konoha's intelligence agency headquarters. Compared to 3 days ago, Konoha's HQ looked much better. At least from the outside, the damage wasn't as serious as before. However, to completely repair it, it's obviously not something that can be done in just a few days. This is the damage caused by the accident 3 days ago. As soon as Rog returned to his office, Hinata projected the already calculated details of the disaster. Looking at the dense statistical details projected by Hinata, Rog frowned slightly. Although the damage to Konoha's HQ can't be compared to the explosion in the forest, it still caused huge damage. Not to mention the damage to the building, just the hundreds of people who were accidentally injured gave him a headache. Although there were no deaths, Konoha's search for traces of the Skrull became even more passive due to the injuries of these people. Give these injured people the highest standard of treatment and compensation. I don't want them to have the idea of leaving Konoha because of this accident. Rog didn't hesitate and directly ordered Hinata. After arranging the treatment plan for the injured people, he browsed through the disaster situation of Konoha's HQ. The repair and reconstruction of damaged buildings, the repair and replacement of destroyed equipment, a list of categories constantly passed through his eyes. After looking at the final loss in the hundreds of millions, Rog sighed helplessly. If he knew this would happen, he would never have taught Hulk Hashman Tonku in his private practice. Although Konoha isn't short of money now, a string of numbers that look similar to a phone number still makes him feel a burst of heartache. The specific repair and reconstruction work will be done according to your plan. In addition, send the latest instructions to the special forces outside, let them capture a Skrull and bring them back to the HQ without endangering their own safety. If they can't capture a Skrull alive, bring back a Skrull's body. After he issued a public declaration, most of the action personnel in Konoha's headquarters were sent out. Even Daisy, Pietro, and the others were also searching for the whereabouts of the Skrulls. Now, in addition to some necessary security forces, the rest are some logistics and technical personnel. This was also the main reason why he was worried that the injured would think of leaving Konoha. It was common for combatants to be injured, so they wouldn't think too much about it. However, it was different for technicians. Their tolerance for injuries was naturally lower. After instructing Hinata, Rog did not intend to continue to stay in the office and directly returned to his room. After living in the wild with Hulk for 3 days, he needed to take care of his personal hygiene and get a good night's sleep. The next morning, after resting all night, he transformed into an ordinary blonde youth and quietly left Konoha's headquarters. Although Daisy and Pietro were now searching for the whereabouts of the Skrulls outside, they didn't have a special identification device, so it was difficult for them to find the whereabouts of the Skrulls in a short time. In order to solve the problem that Tani encountered in the development of the device as soon as possible, he could only choose to do it himself. After transforming into an ordinary person, he didn't choose to look for the scrolls in Washington, but instead came to New York. After using quantum transmission to reach the top of a building, he took a deep breath, then used chakra perception. Different races have different life energy signals. Even if the scrolls can transform into the appearance of the Earthlings, their life energy signal can't be exactly the same as the Earthlings. Of course, the above is only his guess. Before finding the real scrolls, he can't be 100% sure that his guess is correct. Even the Carey Empire that destroyed the Skrulls' home planet couldn't easily distinguish the transformed Skrulls. Therefore, the transformation of the Skrulls may not have such an obvious weakness. Although sensing life energy is a relatively rare ability, it's not to the point that the Carey Empire's technology can't reach. It wasn't an easy task to detect a Skrull hiding in an unknown location in an international metropolis with a population of nearly 10 million. Especially when he doesn't know what kind of life energy signal the transformed Skrulls have. Time passed little by little. Rog continuously expanded his sensing range from the inside to the outside, trying to find the Skrulls hiding in the crowd. However, after trying for nearly an hour, he helplessly ended his sensing. He can't sense anything. Apart from the special life energy signals he already knew, he didn't find any abnormalities. Perhaps there were some minor anomalies, but in such a large area of general perception, these minor anomalies were directly ignored by him. Even if his chakra can support it, he doesn't have that much time to carefully sense the people one by one. Even if he only needed 1 second to sense a life energy signal with the current population of New York, he would need nearly 10 million seconds. That's 2,770 hours, a total of 100 days. His wish to use the difference in life energy signals to quickly find the Skrulls has been dashed. In that case, the only thing left for him was to roll his eyes at her. However, compared to Chakra's sensing range, Supercilious Eye's range is much smaller. A radius of 10 kilometers. This is the maximum range that Supercilious Eye can reach. Beyond this range, his X-ray vision will significantly decrease, to the point where he can't even see through clothes. More importantly, he doesn't really want to use Supercilious Eye's X-ray vision to search for the Skrulls. If he used Supercilious Eye's X-ray vision to search for the Skrulls, it would mean that he would have to see through every person's body. Although he can control his X-ray vision to the extent that he can directly see through the body, but no matter what, this kind of act of looking at a person's internal organs is very perverted and disgusting. Simply put, he can't get past his psychological barrier. To look or not to look, that's the question. After seriously considering it for a few minutes, in order to ensure his psychological health, he finally gave up on the idea of using Supercilious Eye. It's fine if it's just a few people, but there are so many people in New York. If he has to look through them one by one, he might as well just kill himself. At least this way, he can die with an untainted brain. Chapter 419. Brooklyn, in a camouflaged vehicle downstairs of an old-fashioned building. Is there really a Skrull hiding here? Pietro, wearing a special light blue combat uniform, whispered to Daisy next to him. According to the investigation of the Intelligence Department and Hinata's analysis, the target is more than 80% likely to be a Skrull. After saying that, Daisy handed a custom-made tablet to Pietro. On the screen of the tablet, there is a middle-aged man who looks inconspicuous, a bald middle-aged man with a huge beer belly. From his appearance alone, this man named John is a slovenly middle-aged man who lives alone and has been unemployed for a long time. However, according to the analysis of Konoha's Intelligence Department and Hinata, this inconspicuous John is likely to be a Skrull in disguise. Although Tani hasn't invented a device to identify Skrulls yet, this doesn't mean that Konoha will wait in vain during this time. By analyzing John's behavior and comparing it with his previous life and habits, Konoha's Intelligence Department made an evaluation that John is suspected to be a Skrull. This evaluation of the Intelligence Department was further analyzed and confirmed by Hinata, and she obtained the same result. Then what are we waiting for? Pietro's superpower is super speed, and his personality is similar to his superpower. He's a guy who can't calm down, waiting for his friends to come. At this time, Daisy was wearing the black special combat uniform of Konoha's intelligence department, and her whole body exuded a serious aura. Before Pietro joined Konoha, Daisy was a member of the special combat team. When she joined the special forces, she even rejected Roger's arrangement and started from the lowest level of the special forces. Even under such circumstances, she was still promoted to the position of captain of the special forces through her military exploits. The team that is acting with her now is the special combat team that she led at the beginning. In addition to Daisy and Pietro leading the special combat team to look for Skrulls outside, Punisher, Abomination, Moonstone, Red Tank, and others are also leading the special combat team outside. At present, only Venom and Xiao are acting alone. Venom has Eddie as his partner, so he doesn't need other teammates. Blackie, on the other hand, simply did not like to be used by others. Other than Rog, he had no interest in becoming someone else's weapon, so he also chose to act alone. His friend is also from Skrull? Pietro asked. I'm not sure. It could be a friend of John's real identity, or it could be a friend disguised as John's friend. The intelligence department is currently analyzing the situation, but due to the incident at the headquarters, the speed of the analysis is much slower. Speaking of the accident at the headquarters, Daisy and Pietro looked at each other helplessly. As soon as the accident happened, they received a message from Hinata, knowing that the accident was caused by Rog and Hulk. Rog is really something. He usually looks like a very steady person, but he always likes to do dangerous things. Recalling what Rog had done before, Pietro couldn't help but complain. It's not a good habit to talk behind someone's back. You won't be able to find a girlfriend if you keep doing this. As soon as Pietro finished speaking, Rog's voice came from behind him, startling him. No, I didn't. Pietro quickly explained and turned around to look behind him. No. Why you here? Didn't Hinata say that you took Hulk outside? Pietro immediately changed the topic. I came back yesterday. Chakra's perception didn't work, and he didn't want to look at other people's internal organs one by one, so he used the Flying Thunder God to sense Daisy and Pietro, who were also in New York. Daisy and Pietro still have the Flying Thor jutsu he left on them. After returning to Earth, he didn't have time to remove the jutsu on them. He would never admit that he had completely forgotten about this matter. After all, after practicing in Konoha's hidden village on Tatooine for half a year, he didn't remember leaving jutsu on Daisy and Pietro. If he hadn't sensed these two Flying Thor jutsu when he used Chakra's perception just now, he wouldn't have remembered it at all. After seeing Rog's arrival, the Special Forces members standing behind Daisy and Pietro saluted Rog for the first time. Rog is no stranger to these Special Forces members, and he can even call out each of their names. When Konoha's intelligence agency was first established, Konoha only had a little more than 100 Special Forces members. However, by now, Konoha's Special Forces members have developed to more than 200 people. Even the Umbu directly under him has developed from more than 30 people to more than 60 people. Whether it is these Special Forces members or the Umbu members, they have all been transformed by extremists. Therefore, on their bodies, there is the ultimate seal of the tongue bane placed by Rog. Facing the salute of these Special Forces members, Rog can only helplessly return a salute. How is the situation now? Rog quickly withdrew his gaze from the Special Forces members and asked Daisy, the captain. The one above, there is an 80% chance that he is a Scrooge, and he has a friend who may also be a Scrooge, so we plan to wait for them to meet before we act. Daisy quickly explained, and motioned for Pietro to hand the tablet in his hand to Rog. Room 703. Glancing at the location noted on the screen, Rog opened his Byakugan in front of Daisy and Pietro. Byakugan, activate. In an instant, the blue veins next to his eyes bulged, and Rog's white eyes became even weirder. Don't look at me like that, this is my new ability. While speaking, Rog wanted to look directly at room 703 of the building, but when his eyes appeared on Daisy, he unconsciously turned on his X-ray vision. Red, damn it! What am I thinking? After realizing that something was wrong, Rog immediately turned off the X-ray vision of Byakugan and turned his head to look outside. What is this new ability? Rog deliberately omitted the explanation of Byakugan's ability, but Pietro asked immediately. This allows me to see the enemy's attack more clearly. He must not tell them that Byakugan has the ability to see through things, absolutely not. See the enemy's attack clearly? This sounds no different from your previous red eyes. Pietro showed a "that's it" expression. The difference is big, you are still young, you don't understand this, I don't blame you. Rog cut off this topic in time. Chapter 420. In order to prevent Pietro from asking awkward questions, Rog didn't stay in the camouflaged mobile vehicle for too long. He used quantum teleportation and teleported from the car to the roof of the target building. I feel like his eyes are a little weird. He must be hiding something from us. Pietro voiced his opinion. I have the same feeling. When Rog looked at her with supercilious eyes, Daisy suddenly had a feeling that she was completely seen through, as if she wasn't wearing any clothes at all. As a woman, Daisy had an unreasonable intuition in this regard. After teleporting to the rooftop, Roger calmed himself down. At the same time, an idea popped up in his mind. I'm an experienced veteran, how can I still have this kind of panic? This doesn't make sense. Could this be the so-called stimulation of peeping? Rog's thoughts began to wander uncontrollably in his mind. After dozens of inappropriate images unconsciously appeared in his mind, he reacted again. Damn it, it's not over yet, is it? With a thought, he mobilized chakra in his body and let chakra stimulate his brain. In an instant, the wild thoughts in his mind vanished, and what replaced them was a feeling of seeing through the world of mortals, as if the world was nothing but an illusion. After completely calming down, he stood on the roof and focused his gaze on room 703, where John lived. Messy. This was Rog's first reaction after seeing room 703 with supercilious eyes. In this room that seemed to be non-existent, he saw the target of Daisy and the others' operation, the bald middle-aged man named John. After further adjusting the degree of supercilious eyes penetration, he directly saw through John's internal structure. Although Rog was not a professional doctor, after killing so many people with his own hands, he still had a good understanding of the internal structure of the human body on Earth. The first second he saw through John's body, he could basically confirm that this man named John was the legendary Skrull. Although his appearance was no different from an Earthling, his internal structure was completely different from that of a human. I finally found you. After confirming John's identity, he put on the headset he had just gotten from the train and told Daisy and the others about his discovery. Since John was a Skrull, his friend Alan was most likely a Skrull as well. With these two Skrulls and Tani's intelligence, it wouldn't take long for him to invent a device that could identify Skrulls. Then, it was a beautiful pursuit and killing operation. While waiting for the other Skrull, Alan, Rog carefully sensed John's life energy signal. Compared to humans on Earth, the Skrull's life energy signal was more than 95% similar. If one didn't sense it carefully, it would be easy to overlook it. After thoroughly studying the life energy signal of the Skrulls, he dispelled Chakra's sensing ability and patiently waited for Alan's arrival. He didn't know if these Skrulls generally didn't have a sense of time, or if only this Skrull named Alan was like this. After blowing the cool breeze on the roof for about half an hour, the Skrull named Alan finally arrived at John's house. Unlike the greasy John, Alan's human appearance was clearly much better. His body was well-proportioned and straight, his hair was lush and clean, and his clothes were neat and tidy. More importantly, this Alan's face was handsome enough and younger. He looked like a college student who had just graduated. When Alan and John stood together, it was like a contrast between a pretty boy and a wretched uncle, like a strong contrast in a postmodern oil painting. Of course, this was Rog's personal opinion. After all, to the Skrulls, appearance wasn't important at all. As long as they wanted to, they could change into any appearance. Let's move. Since Alan and John didn't look like super Skrulls, Rog didn't plan to personally take action. He handed the task of capturing them to Daisy and the others who had been waiting downstairs for a long time. At this moment, Alan and John were completely unaware of the approaching danger. Now, they were talking in Skrull, which Rog couldn't understand at all. Although Rog, who was standing on the roof, couldn't hear their conversation, judging from their mouths, what they were saying now was not the Earth language he was familiar with. A few minutes later, the special forces led by Daisy came to the door of John's room, and like a group of wolves hunting for food, they made the final preparations before the attack without saying a word. What happened next was basically staged like a written script. Breaking the door, suppressing, attacking, subduing, handcuffing, in front of 6 Special Forces members who had been modified by extremists, as well as Daisy and Pietro, who had superpowers. The 2 ordinary Skrulls only lasted a few seconds before they were completely subdued. Then they were handcuffed, put on a pure black hood, and directly escorted to the mobile car downstairs. When the camouflage train was completely away from the block, Rog left the roof with the flying thunder god and teleported to the mobile car. I will take these 2 guys directly to the Avengers headquarters. You guys take a break and then continue to perform other tasks. After speaking, Rog grabbed the shoulders of the 2 Skrulls and used quantum transmission. The reason why he didn't choose to use portal magic is because using portal magic in a moving vehicle is no different from directly cutting the vehicle. Portal is a fixed space entrance and exit, and it will not change its space coordinates because of the movement of the vehicle. At this point, quantum transmission is undoubtedly more suitable. A brilliant aurora-like light lit up in the car. Then the light disappeared, and Rog and the 2 Skrulls also disappeared. Because he didn't know where Tani's laboratory was located at the Avengers headquarters, Rog chose to teleport to Tani's office this time. At this time, Tani was reviewing the information sent back by the action teams secretly dispatched by the Avengers in his office. However, in the next second, a brilliant aurora-like light appeared in his office out of thin air. The research subjects you want, I brought them to you. Before Tani realized what was going on, Rog took off the hood on Alan and John's heads. They are Skrulls? Are you sure you didn't catch the wrong people? After carefully observing Alan and John, Tani asked with some uncertainty. Of course I'm sure. As soon as his voice fell, Rog took out a flying Thor kunai with his right hand and slashed across Alan and John's arms like lightning. Purple blood that was completely different from that of the Earthlings slowly flowed out of the wound. Chapter 421. Purple Blood. Seeing the purple blood that didn't belong to an Earth creature, Tani no longer had any doubts and immediately arranged for the guards to send the 2 Skrulls to his laboratory. I'll leave the rest to you. If you need anything else, you can contact me at any time. After handing over the 2 Skrulls to Tani, Rog didn't intend to continue staying at the headquarters. Although his relationship with Tani is quite good, his reputation in the Alliance isn't very good. Tani, Hulk, Natasha, and Scott are the only 4 people in the Alliance who aren't dissatisfied with Rog's domineering style. As for Rogers and the other members of the American team, they more or less had some complaints about him. Especially after he openly threatened the protesters in the live news broadcast, their evaluation of Rog became lower and lower. If it weren't for the fact that Roger was far stronger than them, perhaps Rogers would have brought the Special Forces of the United States to capture him at any time. However, Rog didn't care about the dissatisfaction of Rogers and the others. I like it when you don't like me, but can't do anything to me. No problem. If Konoha needs any help, you can contact the Alliance at any time. Tani replied. Afterward, Rog used the portal magic and returned to Konoha's headquarters. Both Konoha and the Alliance's special forces are outside searching for Skrulls. The only difference is that Konoha openly sent out their special forces, while the Alliance can only send out their special forces secretly. After all, the Alliance is different from Konoha. Konoha can completely ignore people's evaluation and opinions, but the Alliance can't. After handing over the 2 Skrulls to Tani, Rog didn't go out to look for Skrulls again. He had no interest in these ordinary Skrull people. Unless Daisy and the others find the legendary Super Skrulls, he won't make a move. A week passed in the blink of an eye. When Rog played the Kree Empire console game in Konoha's headquarters for a whole week, he finally received a call from Tani. Come over, the first-generation identification device has been invented. Tani didn't say anything and went straight to the point. Okay, I'll be right there. After hanging up the phone, Rog opened the portal connected to Tani's office and directly walked in. At this time, a lot of members of the Alliance gathered in Tani's office. Rogers, Natasha, Hawkeye, Hallucination, Colonel Road. Obviously, Tony had also called back all the American team members who were out on the mission. However, Rog didn't see Hulk. Where's Hulk? Roger nodded at Natasha and Scott, then asked, What's the matter? He's practicing the new move you taught him in the training room. He hasn't left the training room for many days, and he has no intention of letting Dr. Banner come out. Having said that, Tani looked at Rog with a complicated expression. If it weren't for Hulk's unwillingness to return his body to Dr. Banner, he wouldn't have to do everything by himself. Tani is good in the field of mechanical technology, and biology is not in his research scope. Dr. Banner is the most suitable person to study alien creatures like Skrulls. You have to learn to respect Hulk's choice. If you always force Hulk to do things he doesn't like, he will become more and more rebellious. Rog explained to Hulk. It is precisely because the Alliance always forces Hulk to do things he doesn't like that Hulk has never gotten along with the people of the Alliance. Although Hulk is very powerful, he can't always be used as a weapon and tool. Let's not talk about this for now. Let me introduce you to this instrument to identify Skrulls. After that, Tani pointed to the instrument on the desk, which looked like a thick tablet computer. Through detailed research on the two Skrulls, I found a way to identify them. Tani picked up the instrument on the desk and pressed the start button. We can't see through the disguise of the Skrulls with just the naked eye. However, when studying their purple blood, I found that there is some extremely weak special radiation in their blood. After a detailed study of the special frequency of the radiation, I have successfully identified this radiation frequency alone. Since there is a special frequency of radiation, the next thing is very simple. The principle of this identification instrument is similar to a nuclear radiation detector. The only difference is that this instrument can only identify the special radiation in the blood of the Skrulls. After that, Tani handed the instrument in his hand to Rog, then continued, Through the camera on the instrument, we can identify the special radiation in those people. Red is a normal human from Earth. Purple is a Skrull. Because this is the first-generation version, the detection range is only about 100 meters. Rog picked up the instrument in his hand and operated it briefly, then scanned everyone in the room. Tani's explanation was clear enough, but Rog soon found something wrong. Tani and Captain America's scan result was indeed normal human red. However, when he scanned himself in the illusion, he saw colors other than red and purple. The illusion's scan result was yellow, while his scan result was blue. What do blue and yellow mean? Rog asked Tani. Nothing special. Simply put, you and the illusion emit radiation. As for whether this radiation will affect the people around you, unless you are willing to let me study you in detail, I can't give you a definite answer. Tani said casually. Although Tani said it casually, after he finished, Rog found that the eyes of Natasha and the others became a little strange. If it wasn't red, it meant that they weren't normal humans. The illusion is relatively easy to understand. After all, he is a robot with autonomous consciousness. But Rog is different. He is a native of Earth. Rog ignored the strange eyes of Natasha and the others, handed the instrument back to Tani, and began to think quickly in his mind. Is this the aftereffect of practicing chakra? Or is it because of the increase in strength that he began to evolve in the direction of aliens? There are a total of 20 sets of this instrument. Compound and Konoha will share equally, 10 sets on each side. When Rog wondered whether he had begun to evolve in the direction of aliens, Tani asked the staff outside the room to move the remaining 19 sets of identification instruments in. Chapter 422. Although this device can only identify Skrulls within 100 meters, It's undoubtedly a huge improvement compared to searching for scrolls through data analysis. With this device, Konoha's intelligence department no longer needs to compare the data of suspected targets and analyze whether they've been replaced by scrolls. Good job! Everyone in the room picked up the device and started operating it, then expressed their approval of Tani's work. Tani may not be the most powerful superhero in the Avengers, but he's definitely the most irreplaceable existence in the Avengers. Without Tani's brain, the Avengers wouldn't have developed to this point. I'll accept the device. But if you have time, you can try to upgrade it. 100 meters is still too small. No problem. Once I develop a new version, I'll inform you as soon as possible. After receiving Tony's reply, Rog opened the portal connecting to his office and returned to Konoha's office with the 10 sets of identifiers that belonged to Konoha. Hinata, arrange for people to send out the device. It's time to give these scrolls a surprise. Rog said to Hinata. But it didn't take long for 2 Konoha staff in black uniforms to come to Rog's office and took out the device on the table. The problem of how to identify scrolls has been solved. The next step is naturally to capture and kill them. However, Rog still has no plans to take action. Unless Daisy and the others find a super scroll, he won't do it himself. Capturing ordinary scrolls is not a challenge for him at all. If he has the time, he might as well clear a few more Kree Empire games. Under Hinata's arrangement, the identification device invented by Tony was quickly sent to Daisy and the others who were acting outside. With the device, the efficiency of Konoha and the Avengers' operations has been significantly improved. In just 3 days, the number of captured and killed scrolls has reached more than 20. The number of suspected names on the list is also decreasing at a considerable speed. Sama, the joint conference will start in half an hour. Hinata woke up Rog, who was addicted to the game. Got it. Although somewhat reluctant, Rog still logged out of the Kree Empire game and took off his helmet. At this time, a week has passed since Tani handed over the device. In this week, Konoha and the Avengers achieved brilliant results. They had captured 36 scrolls alive and killed 43 scrolls. Under the joint attack of Konoha and the Avengers, the scrolls active in Washington and New York were all caught in one net. Even the scrolls who disguised themselves as government workers weren't spared from the attack. In the beginning, the White House and military expressed their dissatisfaction with Konoha and the Avengers. But when they received the corpses of Skrulls, they obediently shut up. Because of the Skrulls with the Skrulls to kill Konoha. Even the suggestion of a joint press conference was tactfully proposed by the White House and the military. But even if they didn't mention it, Tani had already decided to hold a press conference. In the past 6 months, the Avengers had taken the blame many times, and the support of the public has reached an all-time low. Now that there is sufficient evidence, it's time to wash away the slander. Rog didn't have any objection to Tani's decision to hold a press conference. But on the issue of how to deal with the captured Skrulls, they had different opinions. Tani's idea was to show the Skrulls who were still alive at the press conference, put the witnesses in front of the public, and then lock them up in a secret prison. Tani's idea wasn't wrong. After all, in the UA, some states didn't even have the death penalty. And this approach was in line with the humanism that the UA has always promoted. However, Rog had a different view on this. Showing the existence of the Skrulls to the public was no problem. After the Battle of New York, people all over the world knew that there were other intelligent life forms in the universe. Since there were the Zitari, it wasn't strange to have another Skrull. What really caused them to have different opinions was the decision of whether to lock up the Skrulls. Tani was more inclined to lock up the Skrulls, while Rog was more inclined to kill them. If they kept the Skrulls alive, who knew what would happen in the future? It was better to just kill them. Neither of them could convince the other, so the joint press conference was held. The Skrulls would be displayed at the press conference. At the same time, they would announce a 3-day secret voting campaign on the spot. Any UA citizen with legal status could log on to a special website to vote. The results of the voting would determine the fate of the Skrulls. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, at the Avengers headquarters in the suburbs of New York, the joint press conference was held on time. Tani was the main speaker of the press conference. He stood on the stage and introduced the scrolls' abilities in detail, as well as the dangers they brought. However, even when he asked the staff to bring a few scrolls who hadn't transformed onto the stage, the reporters didn't have much of a reaction. Looking at the somewhat deserted scene, Tani seemed to have realized something. Once the impression was bad, it was difficult to recover. Even if people knew that the scrolls had disguised themselves to frame the superheroes, they wouldn't change their opinion. Because once they changed their opinion, it meant that they had to admit that they were stupid and that they had done wrong. It was similar to the king's new clothes. Although they knew it was the truth, they would never admit it. Before the press conference started, Rog expected this. But he didn't remind Tani. Instead, he wanted to let Tani experience it himself. Although Tani had experienced some pain, he still overestimated human nature. As Rog expected, the climax of the press conference came when Tani announced the voting to decide the fate of the scrolls. What right do the Avengers and Konoha have to decide the fate of the scrolls? Although they are aliens, they are also living beings. Even if there is a trial, they can only be tried through the law. Although the scrolls have the ability to transform, you don't have enough evidence to prove it. The so-called evidence you provided is only your side of the story. The reporters in the audience said one after another, directly targeting the Avengers and Konoha. The reporters who were not interested in Tani's evidence now stood on the moral high ground and began to refute with righteous words. Looking at the suddenly agitated reporters, Tani was stunned. Then he looked at Rog, who was sitting on his right. Chapter 423. Looking at Tani's pleading eyes, Rog suddenly missed the Tani before he became Iron Man. Although Tani didn't know him at that time, he had seen a lot of news reports and live broadcasts about Tani. The arrogant genius and playboy from back then was completely gone. It had to be said that the identity of a superhero could really change a person. If it was the Tani from back then, he would never have shown such pleading eyes, let alone be speechless by the reporter's questions. After silently lamenting in his heart, Rog stood up and came to the podium. There was no need for any verbal communication. When Rog came over, Tani immediately gave up his position and sat in his seat without saying a word. When the person standing on the podium became Rog, the sharp questions from the audience instantly disappeared without a trace. A person's name, a tree's shadow. The reporters in the audience may not have dealt with Rog before, but they must have seen Rog's arrogant public declaration. "I will answer your questions just now," Rog said in a calm tone. His eyes slowly swept over every reporter in the audience. Although he hadn't done anything yet, the moment his eyes swept over them, all the reporters in the audience felt an inexplicable chill. However, as reporters, they showed excellent professionalism and didn't show any signs of losing their composure. This was a live broadcast. If they lost their composure, even if their careers weren't ruined, they would at least go down the drain. "Actually, I can answer all your questions with one sentence. We are not discussing with you how to deal with these scrolls, we are just informing you. It doesn't matter if you're willing or not, or if you acknowledge it or not, the fate of these scrolls is only imprisonment for life or death. You only have the right to vote or not, you have no right to raise any objections. If you want to show your benevolence, go to this website and vote. Do you understand?" Rog's tone was neither cold nor stern. However, everyone could hear the undeniable tone in his words. After that, Rog gestured to the staff below the stage to project the voting page onto the huge screen on the stage. At this time, the statistics below the death and life imprisonment options were still 0. The reason why it was still 0 was not because no one in the United States had voted, but because the voting had not even begun. "Now, I announce that the voting for the punishment of the Skrulls has officially begun." As Rog's voice sounded, the 72-hour countdown at the top of the voting page began to roll. A few seconds after Rog announced the start of the voting, the statistics on the page began to rise crazily. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, 50,000. Looking at the increasing numbers on the page, the reporters sitting in the audience fell silent. Just as Rog had said, They had no right to make any suggestions or objections. The crazy numbers on the voting page proved an incomparably cruel fact. That is, not many people cared whether Konoha and the Avengers' decision was legal or not. In other words, those who voted tacitly agreed that Konoha and the Avengers had the right to do so. With the official start of the voting, the scheduled process of the press conference was all over. However, Rog did not leave the stage at this time, but continued, "Perhaps even now, some people still don't believe that the previous accidents were caused by the Skrulls, but it doesn't matter, because the evidence you want is now in front of you. All cameramen, aim the camera at the door." Not to mention the reporters and cameramen at the scene, even Tani and Daisy didn't understand Rog's words. However, they soon knew the reason. The venue of the press conference was on the grass next to the Avengers' headquarters, only a few dozen meters away from the door. After hearing Rog's words, everyone at the scene turned to look at the door. Then, they saw a large group of superheroes. Iron Man wearing an Iron Man armor, Captain America holding a shield, Hulk with a tall figure, Hawkeye with a bow and arrow. Of course, among these superheroes, there were also no faces of Konoha members. Punisher, Abomination, Shockwave Woman, Quicksilver, Red Tank, among these superheroes, except for Yondaime Hokage and Thor, the faces of Konoha and the Avengers who have publicly appeared and performed missions outside were basically all there. Did you know this would happen? Looking at the superheroes, who suddenly arrived on the opposite side, Tani asked Rog, "Isn't this a normal thing? If Rogers and the others were tried in public on other planets, you would definitely take people to rescue them." Rog answered calmly. When Tani proposed a huge press conference, he guessed this. What's more, they also made a special advance notice. "Why didn't you say it earlier? We weren't ready to fight at all." Tani complained. "No, it's just that you weren't ready. Konoha was ready early in the morning. We will stop them first. You are responsible for evacuating the crowd and sending these people to a safe place." After that, Rog summoned his Haori and Kusanagi sword. Tani wanted to continue to say something, but when he saw that Konoha's people had rushed up, he could only silently accept Rog's arrangement. "This is also an opportunity for us, an opportunity to catch them all in one fell swoop." As soon as his voice fell, Rog's figure disappeared on the stage, leaving only a finger-thick light blue electric snake. Lightning body flicker. Using the lightning body flicker, Rog came from the stage to the door in an instant, and the Kusanagi sword in his hand was wrapped in light blue lightning. Without any hesitation, the Kusanagi sword in his hand directly stabbed the nearest Hawkeye. Whoosh! The Kusanagi sword wrapped in lightning cut through the Hawkeye's neck like cutting through a cream cake, instantly beheading him. Byakugan, open. When the head of the Hawkeye flew, Rog opened the Byakugan at the same time, increasing his vision to the level of cheating. When Rog took the lead to kill the Hawkeye, the other Konoha's people also launched their own attacks. Chapter 424. Daisy, Quicksilver, and the Punisher, who came to the press conference with Rog, immediately targeted their pirated versions. The shockwave from Daisy's palms directly sent her pirated versions flying. Quicksilver, on the other hand, played a racing game with his pirated version. As for the Punisher, his attack was the simplest and most violent. He directly pulled out the pistol at his waist and madly shot his pirated versions. Although Daisy and the others first entangled their pirated versions, there were more than a few pirated heroes present at this time. Just as these pirated heroes planned to join forces to deal with Daisy and the others, two terrifying figures fell from the sky like meteorites, smashing two huge craters on the grass. Abomination and the Red Tank appeared. Because the two of them were too big, Rog didn't bring them to the press conference, but arranged them in the Quinjet. The domineering appearance of Abomination and the Red Tank immediately attracted the attention of these pirated heroes, and also disrupted their plan to besiege Daisy and the others. Following Abomination and the Red Tank were Blackie and Venom, whose appearance was 95% similar. Like Abomination and the Red Tank, they were also arranged in the Quinjet by Rog. Following Blackie and Venom was Moonlight Stone, who was wearing a gold and white uniform. Although she was the last to appear, the way she appeared was the most eye-catching. Moonlight Stone herself hadn't flown to the scene yet, but the energy shockwave she fired had already arrived in the crowd of pirated heroes. Boom! Boom! A huge explosion suddenly sounded, and the shockwave of the explosion directly blew away the smaller pirated heroes. Except for Dr. Lizard and Walter, all of Konoha's main forces were present. As for the special forces and the Umbu, Rog didn't give them any tasks, but let them stay in Konoha's headquarters. Today's battle was a battle between the original and the pirated version. Although the Skrull side had the advantage in numbers, the Punisher and the others relied on their own strength to make up for the disadvantage in numbers. The Skrull's transformation ability was indeed very good, and the abilities they created with their technology were indeed very realistic. But pirated versions were always pirated versions. In front of the original Punisher, these pirated versions had no advantage except for the advantage in numbers. While Konoha's people entangled these pirated heroes, the Avengers didn't stay idle and quickly evacuated the reporters and other innocent people present. Just as Tani and the others were evacuating the crowd, a tall green figure came to their side. The person who appeared was none other than Hulk, who practiced the Hashiman Tonka day and night in the training room. "Hulk, you're here, great. Do you see those people who look exactly like us? Go up and beat them up hard." Tani said to Hulk. "What about the others?" Hulk pointed to the people of Konoha. "You don't have to care about them, you just have to beat up those people who are pretending to be the Avengers. You are. Hulk nodded his head in agreement with Tony's statement. However, Hulk didn't rush directly to the Skrull people as Tani imagined, but instead, he took a deep breath in front of him. What does this mean? Is he calming himself down? Because Tani has been busy with the Skrull people, he didn't know what Rog taught Hulk. But in the next second, Tani saw a completely different Hulk from his memory. Gamma energy exuding a strange green light appeared on Hulk's body, as if it was covering him with a layer of energy. Then, just as Tani was about to ask Hulk what was going on, Hulk said very seriously, "Hashiman Tonku, first gate, open, open." As Hulk's voice sounded, the gamma energy on his body became stronger. However, what really shocked Tani was that Hulk was exuding an amazing aura that was completely different from before. In the past, although Hulk was very powerful, he always gave people the feeling that he was crazy and brainless. But now, Hulk was exuding a cold-blooded and austere aura like a veteran. What did Rog teach Hulk? The current Hulk looks very dangerous. No, after this matter is over, I must have a good chat with Hulk. Just as Tani was surprised by Hulk's aura, Hulk suddenly disappeared in front of him, leaving behind an afterimage. Then, he heard a collision sound like an explosion. After opening the first gate, Hulk lifted the restrictions on his brain and used 100% of his physical strength for the first time. After using all of his physical strength, Hulk showed an amazing speed that far exceeded his previous speed. His whole body was like a train as he crashed into the Skrull people, knocking away the Skrull people who had transformed into him. Before Hulk had even opened the first door, Rog had already sensed his presence. Byakugan's 360-degree vision without blind spots allowed him to clearly see everything that was happening around him. If he wanted to, he could even see through everyone's body. However, he did not do that. Instead, he moved forward as if he was taking a stroll, casually killing Black Widow and Captain America. These Skrulls who had transformed into Black Widow and Captain America were ordinary Skrulls. Although they had tried very hard to imitate the strength of the real Skrulls, in front of Rog, even the real Black Widow and Captain America couldn't hold on for long. At this time, Rog wasn't picking on soft persimmons. Instead, he was trying to clear the battlefield as much as possible so that the next battle would have a bigger stage. After searching for a while, he successfully found the Super Skrull that he had been thinking about for a long time among these counterfeit goods. 3. Among these Skrulls, there were only 3 Super Skrulls who had transformed into Super Skrulls: Hulk, Quicksilver, and Shockwave Girl Daisy. Although they were hidden among the ordinary Skrulls, Rog's Byakugan completely saw through their disguise. After killing another Hawkeye, he arrived in front of the Super Skrull who had transformed into Daisy. Don't think about fishing in troubled waters. I know you're a Super Skrull. Go all out. After cleaning up the insensible trash around him, Rog said to Daisy. After discovering that she had been completely exposed, this Daisy had no intention of continuing to hide. She raised her hand and released a strong shockwave that wasn't much weaker than the real Daisy. Chapter 425. The invisible shockwave created ripples in the air and attacked Rog at an astonishing speed. However, for Rog, who was already used to this kind of shockwave attack, the attack from Daisy was too slow. In the blink of an eye, Rog disappeared from his original position, leaving behind a finger-sized light blue electric snake. Then, his voice sounded behind the fake Daisy. "You're too slow." Following his voice, the Kusanagi sword in his hand stabbed straight at the back of Daisy. Without enough time to dodge, Daisy made a counterattack that was within Rog's expectations. Boom! With himself as the center, he unleashed a 360-degree shockwave without any blind spots. This was both an attack and a defense. Although Daisy had never fought with Rog before, all the Skrulls, including him, had studied Rog's fighting style in detail. Strength, speed, technique, energy release. In the internal investigation report of the Skrulls, most of Rog's fighting attributes could be said to be perfect. This was also the reason why these Skrulls had never disguised themselves as Log. With their technology and strength, the Rog that they disguised as was extremely flawed. Even if they used it to fool ordinary people, the Rog that they disguised as was not enough to pass off as the real deal. Therefore, in order to prevent their disguise plan from being exposed, they gave up on the idea of disguising themselves as Rog. However, in Rog's perfect fighting attributes, they discovered a weakness of Rog. To be precise, it could not be considered a weakness. It was just that compared to his other attributes, this attribute was obviously a few levels lower. Constitution. Because he was an Earthling, Rog's constitution was not very outstanding. Not to mention the races in the universe that specialized in constitution, even compared to some ordinary races in the universe, Earthling's constitution was obviously inferior. Under normal circumstances, Rog's constitution was not particularly strong, but it was enough to be his fatal weakness. However, this deficiency in his physique was made up for by his speed that surpassed that of an ordinary person. When analyzing Rog's fighting videos, the Skrulls discovered that Rog had a preference for close combat. In response to this phenomenon, they developed an effective method to deal with Rog's weak constitution. In close combat, they would exchange injury for injury. Although the physiques of the Skrulls aren't that strong, compared to the humans of Earth, they still have an advantage. As long as they could severely injure Rog, not to mention exchanging injury for injury, even exchanging life for injury would be worth it. Although Super Skrulls were rare, they weren't like Log, where there was only one of them. More importantly, they discovered that Rog played an irreplaceable role in Konoha. Once Rog dies, even if Konoha doesn't immediately fall apart, it will be divided into several different forces. In other words, as long as they succeed in killing Rog, it not only means that they got rid of a very troublesome enemy, but it also means that they have caused irreparable damage to Konoha. In a way, the Skrull people's findings weren't wrong. It's just that there was a small problem, that is, their intelligence was a bit too outdated. Before he became a sage, his constitution was indeed Rog's weakness. At least compared to his other attributes, his physique was only equivalent to a strengthened Earthling. However, with the continuous growth of his sage body, this weakness of his constitution was quickly made up for. Although Rog still had the title of an Earthling, his constitution was not inferior to an Asgard. In fact, his constitution was not worse than the Asgard's, it was even better than most of the Asgards. Before he went to rescue the kidnapped Hulk, his hand-to-hand combat with Thor proved this point. Even if these Skrulls paid a bit of attention to news from the universe, such as his battle with Luo Nan and Thanos on planet Sokka, these Skrulls wouldn't continue to believe that his physique was a weakness. Facing the shock wave flying at high speed, Rog did not dodge, his body directly flashed with the chakra coat wrapped with lightning. Lightning release chakra mode. In just a moment, Rog covered his whole body with lightning release chakra, covering himself with a layer of chakra coat that was not inferior to steel. The invisible shock wave of the fake Daisy was like a tsunami wave that hit Rog. Then, his chakra coat was stirred up in a circle of ripples. This shock wave that had no blind spots came quickly and left quickly. Its power was not small. At the very least, the Skrulls not far from Rog and the fake Daisy, as well as the abominations and red tanks, were all sent flying by the shock wave. However, Rog, who was closest to the fake Daisy, was still standing in his original position. Your reaction is not bad. But it's still too slow. As soon as his voice fell, the Kusanagi sword in Rog's hand drew 2 silver arcs in the air. Like cutting a watermelon, the Kusanagi sword did not receive any resistance, easily cutting through the fake Daisy's 2 arms. Her arms were directly cut off. Purple blood spurted out from the wound on the severed arm, as if a faint purple rain was falling. If he wanted, he could directly kill this fake Daisy. However, the fake Daisy's identity as a Super Skrull allowed her to avoid the fate of being directly beheaded. Rog wasn't very interested in the Skrulls' ability to change their appearance. However, he was quite curious about the Super Skrull's ability to copy the target's ability. In order to satisfy his little curiosity, he decided to take these 3 Super Skrulls back to Konoha and study them. After removing the fake Daisy's 2 arms, Rog flashed behind the fake Daisy. His left hand turned into a knife and hit the back of her neck. The sudden heavy blow knocked out the fake Daisy, without any suspense. The Skrulls present didn't expect that one of the 3 strongest Super Skrulls among them would be so weak in front of Rog. She couldn't even hold on for more than 10 seconds. Although they found it hard to believe, as members of their race, the nearby bandit heroes immediately rushed forward in an attempt to save the bandit, Daisy, who had been knocked out by Rog. However, their speed was still too slow. Just as they took their first step, Rog's left hand grabbed the fake Daisy's collar, and the 2 disappeared directly. Flying Thor. In order to prevent this Super Skrull from bleeding to death, Rog didn't waste any time and directly took her back to Konoha's laboratory. Hinata, look after this guy, don't let him die. After instructing Hinata, Rog's figure disappeared again. The Super Skrull who lost her arms was lying motionless on the dissection table in the laboratory. The humanoid robot in the corner was awakened by Hinata, took bandages, sutures, and other tools, and came to the dissection table without saying a word. Chapter 426. Although Hinata didn't know what Rog was going to do to the seriously injured Super Skrull, since Rog had ordered her to do so, she would never let this Super Skrull die. Under Hinata's control, the 3 medical robots quickly treated the seriously injured and unconscious Super Skrull. After bringing the fake Daisy back to the laboratory at Konoha's headquarters, Rog immediately returned to the Avengers' headquarters. At this time, the Skrull disguised as heroes were still fighting with Konoha and the others. However, the most eye-catching thing now wasn't the members of Konoha or the heroes, but Hulk. After opening the first gate, Hulk lifted the restrictions in his brain and exerted 100% of his physical ability. Now, Hulk is using his actions to prove what it means to be unstoppable. Although only Hulk is participating in the battle on the Avengers side for the time being, he, who opened the first gate, blocked more than 20 heroes with his own strength. A Black Widow, with a punch, a Hawkeye, with a kick, and a few men with a kick. Although the unrelated personnel in the Avengers headquarters have been completely evacuated, the broadcast of the battle has never stopped. Through the live broadcast, countless people saw the battle scene of Hulk killing the heroes crazily. Watching these knockoff heroes die one by one in the hands of Hulk, who was emitting green light all over his body, the audience on the other side of the TV couldn't help but have the same thought. Hulk, the strongest Avenger. After returning to the battlefield, Rog paid a little attention to Hulk's battle for a few seconds, and then focused on the fake Quicksilver, who was competing with the real Quicksilver in speed. This fake Quicksilver is also a super Skrull and is one of the research targets that Rog must bring back to the laboratory. Compared with the battles of others, the battle between the real Quicksilver and the fake Quicksilver seemed a bit ordinary. To be precise, it's not ordinary, but not many people can see the specific situation of their battle. In the eyes of others, the two of them are like two flashing ghosts, constantly appearing in every corner of the battlefield. Lightning body flicker. Without any hesitation, Rog immediately joined the speed competition between the two Quicksilver. Compared with the first time they met, Quicksilver's speed has improved a lot. However, he's not the only one whose speed has improved. Within a few seconds, Rog, who was in the state of lightning body flicker, appeared in front of the two of them. Rog's appearance made the real Quicksilver and the fake Quicksilver stunned. Then, a completely different look appeared on their faces. Quicksilver's face, of course, was an expression of excitement. Having competed with Logue in terms of speed, he knew very well what kind of speed Logue possessed. With Rog's help, he was confident that he could solve this problem in a short period of time. Of course, the original Quicksilver was happy to see Roger join, while the counterfeit Quicksilver showed a very dignified look at this time. Speed had always been Logue's forte. Quicksilver was to be very well know this. Just as he was thinking about how to get rid of the joint attack of Rog and Quicksilver, he saw a completely incomprehensible picture. Using lightning body flicker, he instantly appeared in front of the real Quicksilver and the fake Quicksilver. Without any hesitation, Rog made his move. However, his target was not the fake Quicksilver, but the real Quicksilver. Did I mistake him for someone else? This thought quickly emerged in the mind of the fake Quicksilver. Even the real Quicksilver showed a puzzled look after seeing Rog's right hand grabbing him like lightning. Rog, who was using Byakugan, certainly wouldn't mistake him for someone else. What he wanted to catch now was the real Quicksilver. In just a moment, Rog's right hand, which was wrapped in chakra and lightning, grabbed Quicksilver's shoulder. Then, his right hand suddenly exerted force and threw Quicksilver, who was running at high speed, out. After doing all this, he turned and chased after the fake Quicksilver. This fake Quicksilver, who was transformed from a super Skrull, could be solved by him alone. Leaving Quicksilver here is a pure waste of combat power. Although Quicksilver didn't know what Rog was planning, he didn't suffer a serious impact after being thrown by Rog. Instead, he fell into the crowd of heroes in a relatively gentle way. Quicksilver wanted to catch up and ask, but the bandit heroes around him helped him put an end to this idea with their actions. At this time, although Rog was far away from the main battlefield, he could still clearly see everything happening on the battlefield with his Byakugan. After confirming that Konoha's people were not in danger for the time being, he focused his attention on the crazy running fake Quicksilver in front of him. Although this fake Quicksilver tried to rejoin the main battlefield, so as to use his super speed to attack Konoha's people. But Rog told him a fact with his own actions, that is, don't even think about it. At this super speed that exceeds the speed of sound, ordinary ninjutsu can't hit the fake Quicksilver at all. After confirming that Konoha's members on the main battlefield were not in danger with his Byakugan, he closed his Byakugan. 3 Tomo Sharingan, open. First gate of Hashimen Tanku, open. After switching Byakugan to Sharingan, he opened the first gate of Hashimen Tanku at the same time. With the opening of the first gate, his already amazing speed instantly became even more terrifying. He didn't use Hashimen Tanku to directly attack the fake Quicksilver. He had a better way to deal with this fake Quicksilver. After using the Hashimen Tanku, he instantly caught up with Quicksilver in front of him as if he had turned on the nitrogen acceleration of a race car. Sharingan, Golden Bind Genjutsu. When the fake Quicksilver looked at him in shock, Rog used Sharingan Genjutsu on him. The moment he saw Rog's Sharingan, the fake Quicksilver had already realized that something was wrong. However, at this time, there was no way for him to change his fate. Under the state of extreme speed, the fake Quicksilver instantly lost control of his body, and his whole body seemed to be completely solidified. Then his body couldn't move under the action of inertia, like a rolling bowling ball. He hit the outer wall of a nearby building. Boom! The uncontrollable knockoff Quicksilver crashed through the outer wall of the building, and the whole person rolled into the building in an extremely embarrassing manner. When the fake Quicksilver finally stopped rolling, Rog, who was wrapped in a light blue chakra coat, came in front of him and looked at the scar-covered fake Quicksilver. The second super scroll was in his hand. Chapter 427. This guy copied Pietro's super speed. He won't be able to move normally for half an hour. Check his injuries, don't let him die. After you're done, find a room and lock him up. After bringing back the immobile Quicksilver, Rog told Hinata. At this time, on another dissection table in the laboratory, the medical robot was helping the fake, Daisy, with the final treatment. She copied Daisy's superpower. Don't forget to prepare a room for her. Rog glanced at the fake, Daisy, on the autopsy table, who had turned back into a Skrull, and continued. Sir. Hinata's gentle voice sounded out of thin air in the laboratory. After instructing Hinata, Rog once again used the flying Thor and returned to the headquarters. Both the fake, Daisy, and the fake, Quicksilver, were in his hands, only the fake Hulk was left. When he returned to the headquarters of the Avengers, the first thing he saw was his last target, the fake Hulk, that was transformed from a super Skrull. He was being beaten up by the real Hulk who had opened the 8 inner hidden gates. Although he didn't know how a super Skrull with a body similar to an ordinary person became a huge Hulk. However, after seeing the fight between the real Hulk and the fake Hulk, he had to admit that the fake Hulk perfectly copied some of Hulk's abilities. Resistant to beatings. Especially resistant to beatings. Even in the face of the real Hulk who had opened the Hashman Tanku, the fake Hulk still showed an extremely tenacious ability to resist all of Hulk's attacks. While Rog was appreciating the violent aesthetic scene of the real Hulk beating the fake Hulk, Tani and the others, who had evacuated all the unrelated personnel and changed their equipment, finally joined the battle. Similar to Konoha's people, Tani and the others first chose their fake versions. For a while, the grassland of the Avengers became lively. 5 or 6 Iron Man in Iron Man armor were fighting in the air, and 3 or 4 identical Captain America were fighting with each other. The graceful Black Widows were fighting in a group, and the Hawkeye were shooting arrows at each other. The War Machine Colonel Rog, Falcon Sam, Ant-Man Scott, and the others were also fighting fiercely with their knockoff versions. The only one who looked more relaxed was Illusion. He didn't know if it was too difficult to imitate Illusion, or for some other reason, among these heroes, Rog only saw one fake Illusion. With the addition of the Avengers, the fake heroes, who didn't have much advantage, suddenly became more precarious. After a while, Roger, who has activated his Sharingan, began to be unable to distinguish their true identities. But even so, he didn't intend to switch back to Byakugan. The only target he needed to deal with now was the fake Hulk, who was fighting with the real Hulk. As for the other knockoff heroes, they could be dealt with by the real deal. Flying Thor. After sensing the Flying Thor technique on Hulk, Rog directly flashed in front of him and joined forces with him to attack this fake version of Hulk. Taijutsu, Monstrous Strength. After further development of the Sage Body, Rog rarely took the initiative to use Monstrous Strength. Even when fighting with Ronin on Sokka Planet, he didn't deliberately open Taijutsu, Monstrous Strength. However, at this time, in order to send this fake version of Hulk flying as soon as possible, he directly used Monstrous Strength. Even one-on-one with the real Hulk who opened the first gate, this fake version of Hulk couldn't gain the upper hand. When Rog also joined the battle, this fake version of Hulk didn't even have a chance to fight back and could only be beaten passively. Although Hulk didn't know why Rog suddenly joined the battle, he had no opinion on Rog's approach. Not only that, he even somewhat liked the feeling of fighting together with Rog. Under the joint attack of Hulk and Rog, this fake version of Hulk only lasted for less than 5 seconds before he was completely sent flying. Just when Hulk was about to chase after him, Rog suddenly stopped him. "Leave him to me, you go deal with the rest." After speaking, Rog didn't wait for Hulk's reply and used Lightning Body Blink to chase after him. Seeing Rog's figure suddenly disappear, Hulk, who was emitting a green glow, stopped in place and thought for a few seconds before taking large strides towards the other Hulks. The situation had developed to this point. The Skrull people had completely lost the initiative in the battle. Right now, not to mention rescuing the imprisoned Skrull people, whether they could even leave this place alive was a problem. Thinking of this fake version of Hulk transformed from a super Skrull person looked at Rog in front of him with hatred. If it wasn't for Rog, their disguise plan wouldn't have been seen through so quickly. If it wasn't for Rog, their rescue plan wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. All of this was caused by the man in front of him. If it wasn't for him, the Skrull people could definitely turn Earth into their new home planet. In this fake version of Hulk's view, the reason why they couldn't occupy Earth was all Rog's fault. It had to be said that the Skrull people who had already started a space civilization somewhat underestimated Earth. In terms of civilization development, Earth was indeed inferior to those planets that had started a space civilization. However, Earth was truly a monster house. The number of hidden monsters on Earth was more than any other planet in the universe. Even if it wasn't for Rog, their plan to invade Earth would absolutely not succeed. However, at this time, this fake version of Hulk obviously wouldn't think so much. In his mind, there was only one thought, and that was to completely kill Rog. He knew that Rog was very strong, but he wasn't weak either. He was a rare super Skrull among the Skrull people. He was a super Skrull who could perfectly imitate Hulk. He was a super Skrull who survived the full pursuit of the Carey Empire. Just as this fake version of Hulk was about to burst into anger and wanted to prove his strength to Rog, he saw a huge energy ball with a diameter of several meters, crazily rotating. Super Jade Rasengan. Rog didn't intend to explain anything to this fake version of Hulk. The only thing he wanted to do now was to get this rare super Skrull person to Konoha's laboratory as soon as possible, and then carefully study their secrets. Boom. This fake version of Hulk didn't have time to stand up. The Rasengan in Rog's hand fiercely smashed into his body. Then, a huge explosion similar to the explosion of an intercontinental missile occurred. Chapter 428. The huge explosion resounded throughout the headquarters of the Avengers, immediately attracting everyone's attention. When the people of Konoha and the Avengers saw that the explosion was caused by Rog, they chose to ignore it. For Rog, making this kind of shocking explosion was a basic operation, nothing to make a fuss about. But for the Skrulls, Rog's attack was something they couldn't imagine. They couldn't understand how Rog, an Earthling, could have such powerful strength. This kind of strength was even stronger than Ronin, the one who brought indelible painful memories to their race. It has to be said that the intelligence of these Skrulls was not just a little bit behind. In their hearts, Luo Nan, the demon-like manipulator, was defeated by Luo Gu. Moreover, it was twice. This once again proved how important it was to understand one's opponent in advance before carrying out certain secret plans that could not be divulged to outsiders. The Okodama Rasengan smashed into the body of the knockoff Hulk. Not only did it completely dispel his thoughts of standing up, but it also made him more intimate with the ground. The green grass had disappeared, and in its place was a large hole with a diameter of nearly 10 meters. The knockoff Hulk, who tried to kill Rog, was located in the center of the hole. Although the power of the Okodama Rasengan was very strong, it wasn't enough to kill this super Skrull who transformed into Hulk. However, Rog didn't expect this Okodama Rasengan to be able to deal with this knockoff Hulk. For him, this kind of thing was as simple as breathing. Although casting the Okodama Rasengan required a lot of chakra, right now, he didn't lack chakra. When he just crossed over to this world, he yearned for the existence of chakra. And now, with the Rokubi's chakra and the Yonkyubi, he finally felt a little bit of chakra. The reason why Hashirama was able to pacify the chaotic world. In addition to his unreasonable sage body and Mokuton, more importantly, he had chakra in the truest sense. It was also because of this amazing amount of chakra that Hashirama's could catch the Kyuubi's Bijudama with his bare hands. It was also because he had Chattanooga that he could use the heaven-destroying and earth-exterminating immortal technique, would release, True Thousand Hands, Buddha on top. Although Rog has also developed the sage body to a certain extent, There is still a big gap between him and Hashirama's peak state. If he develops his sage body to the limit, coupled with the complete QB, he is confident that he can display a more powerful attack than Hashirama at his peak. However, this beautiful future was still a little far away from him. Putting these fantasies that he couldn't do for the time being, Rog once again displayed the Super Jade Rasengan. There was nothing that the Rasengan couldn't solve, and if there was, then he would use another one. Now, Rog intended to once again implement this truth that had been proven countless times. Before the knockoff Hulk, who was lying in the center of the big pit, could get up, the second Super Jade Rasengan had already reached his body. Then, another huge explosion resounded throughout the headquarters of the Avengers. Boom! This time, Rog didn't wait for the flying dust to fall to the ground. His right hand once again condensed the Super Jade Rasengan. Then, history repeated itself. Boom! After continuously smashing 5 Super Jade Rasengan on the unlucky knockoff Hulk, Rog finally stopped the idea of making Rasengan and sensed the guy's vital signs. His vitality was not very stable, and his strength was very low. However, he was still alive. Since he didn't die, it didn't affect his next plan. Under the gaze of the Skrulls, Rog slowly walked into the big pit that had expanded to more than 20 meters in diameter. Flying Thor. Without any hesitation, Rog brought the unconscious Hulk, who had changed back to his original appearance, back to the laboratory of Konoha's headquarters. This guy replicated Hulk's ability, the others are the same as before. After instructing Hinata, Rog's figure disappeared again. Although the 3 Super Skrulls were in his hands, the battle in the headquarters wasn't over yet. Although he didn't have much of a plan to fight, as the 4th Hokage of Konoha, he couldn't abandon the members of Konoha who were fighting. This was his duty as the leader of Konoha. When Rog returned to the headquarters of the Avengers, the Skrulls who were in the midst of battle couldn't help but reveal looks of fear. The 3 strongest Super Skrulls among them had all been defeated by Logue, and none of them had been able to hold on for long. From the beginning of the battle to the present, a total of 5 minutes have passed. However, in this short span of 5 minutes, they had lost their 3 most powerful combatants. This kind of thing, not to mention the Skrulls who were at a disadvantage, even if it happened to Konoha and the Avengers who had the advantage, it would still have a psychological impact on Konoha and the Avengers. The situation is over. Although these Skrulls were still trying to resist the attack of Konoha and the Avengers. However, everyone present, including the onlookers on the other end of the television, could easily see this. After returning to the headquarters, Rog didn't join the battle again. As long as he stood there, it was enough to affect the Skrulls. In addition to Roger, Hulk also closed the 8 inner hidden gates and silently came to Roger's side after dealing with the several counterfeit versions that had been passed off as his own. Hulk didn't have the ability to distinguish between Skrulls, except for his own Super Skrulls. He couldn't recognize which one was authentic and which one was fake. In order to avoid accidentally injuring the people on his side, he also directly withdrew from the battle. Rog and Hulk's withdrawal didn't have much impact on the battle. It didn't take long for these Super Skrulls who were still stubbornly resisting to have plans to retreat. However, even if they want to leave now, it's too late. Moreover, Rog won't give them a chance to leave. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Rog summoned 4 shadow clones that looked exactly like him. Then, these 4 shadow clones rushed to the east, west, north, and south directions. 4 Violet Flame Formation. When these 4 shadow clones arrived at the predetermined location, they simultaneously cast the 4 Violet Flame Formation. A purple square-shaped barrier rose into the sky, covering the entire headquarters. The 4 Violet Flame Formation is one of the small results of Rog's research in the past 6 months in Konoha's hidden village. He didn't exchange the 4 Violet Flame Formation from the system, but he developed this ninjutsu on his own. Chapter 429. In the beginning, Kuroto planned to develop the 6 Red Yang formation that was once used by the Jubi's Jinchuriki, Uchiha Obito. The 6 Red Yang formation is more powerful and has a larger range. However, The difficulty of developing the 6 red yang formation is too high to the point that he can't control it. Therefore, he could only take a step back and study the A-rank barrier ninjutsu for Crimson Yang formation, which required 4 Kage-level ninjas to cast. However, reality once again gave him a slap in the face. In the end, he could only start from the lowest level of the 4 purple flame formation. Because this is a research activity that he uses to adjust his life during his training period, he didn't care too much about the level of the 4 purple flame formation and focused on studying it. However, because the 4 purple flame formation is a ninjutsu that he developed himself, the 4 purple flame formation is different. Therefore, his version of the 4 purple flame formation is slightly different from the one in the system. Regarding the rectangular barrier with the purple transparent flame, the version that he had researched was no different from the version that the system had provided. The only difference is that he added some of the functions of the 4 red yang formation to his 4 purple flame formation. The 4 violet flame formation was mainly used to prevent enemies from the outside world from entering the barrier, so it was mainly used against enemies from the outside world. Although the 4 purple flame formation can also prevent enemies from leaving the barrier, the difficulty of destroying the 4 purple flame formation from the inside is not very high. In order to make up for this, he added some of the functions of the 4 red yang formation and the 6 red yang formation to his 4 purple flame formation. The 4 red yang formation and the 6 red yang formation can not only prevent external enemies from entering the barrier, but also prevent enemies from escaping. Although Rog didn't mind the level of the 4 purple flame formation, he couldn't tolerate the disadvantage of the 4 purple flame formation in preventing enemies from escaping. Therefore, he modified his 4 violet flame formation so that it could prevent external enemies from entering and internal enemies from escaping. When the 4 purple flame formation cast by Rog's 4 shadow clones was fully formed, the 4 purple flame formation completely lost the possibility of escape. After doing all this, Kuroda could finally enjoy the final battle of the real and fake superheroes with peace of mind. Perhaps the appearance of the 4 purple flame formation aroused the desperation of the 4 purple flame formation. At the very last moment, the Skrulls managed to gain the upper hand for a short period of time. However, their advantage did not last long before it completely disappeared. After their final counterattack failed, the morale of the Sikru people plummeted, and the fighting strength they displayed also plummeted. It didn't take long for the Skrull soldiers to be defeated. At this time, the obvious gap between Konoha and the Fu once again appeared on the battlefield. All the Skrulls who transformed into Konoha's people, without exception, died. Even if they chose to surrender in the end, they still couldn't avoid the fate of death. But the Avengers were different. Apart from the Skrulls who died on the spot, those who chose to surrender all survived. As long as they put down their weapons and change back to their original appearance, the people of the Avengers will not attack them again, nor will they kill them inhumanely like Konoha. Rog didn't say anything about Daisy and the others' actions. To a certain extent, he even approved of what Daisy and the others had done. To cut the weeds, one must dig up the roots. Although Rog did not openly promote this in Konoha, the people of Konoha understood the essence of it very well. After the end of the battle, he directly removed the 4 shadow clones. Without the continuous supply of chakra from the shadow clones, the 4 purple flame formation quickly dissipated in the air. Rog didn't intend to intervene in the matter of cleaning the battlefield. This is the headquarters of the Avengers, it's not his turn to deal with it. As for the Skrulls who were spared by the Avengers, he wasn't particularly worried about their fate. While the Avengers dealt with the surrendered Skrulls, he directly opened the portal back to Konoha's headquarters. When all the people of Konoha passed through the portal, Rog, who was walking at the back, turned to Tani and said, "See you in 3 days." After that, he directly passed through the portal and closed it. Hearing Rog's last words, Tani's face showed a wry smile. 3 days later, the voting will be closed. With Tani's understanding of Rog, if he said this sentence, it means that he knows what the voting results will be in 3 days. You should all take a break for a few days, there shouldn't be anything special to deal with, enjoy your vacation. After saying that, Rog returned to his office with the Flying Thunder God and asked Hinata to inform Dr. Connors to come to his office. In Konoha, only Dr. Connors has enough ability to study the secret of the Super Scrolls. Therefore, this task belongs to none other than him. Although Hinata can also do some research and analysis work, in the field of biological research, she is still not as good as Dr. Connors. A few minutes later, Dr. Connors in a white coat came to his office. I will give you 3 living Super Scrolls. No matter what method you use, I want to know the secret of these Super Scrolls copying the target's abilities. I will ask Hinata to give you the highest research authority. You can use all the resources in Konoha. If you need other help, you can also apply to Hinata at any time. Just a few minutes ago, Dr. Connors was still watching the live broadcast of the battle at the headquarters of the Avengers in his office. He didn't expect that Rog would arrange such an important task for him just after the battle. No problem. I will complete the task. After making a solemn promise to Rog, Dr. Connors left the office with a satisfied smile. In fact, in Rog's mind, the most suitable research candidate is not Dr. Connors, but Tani and Dr. Banner. But unfortunately, neither of them will carry out this kind of research. This kind of research is against their conscience. Looking at the departing figure of Dr. Connors, Rog sighed helplessly and then began to think about what other scientific research talents are hidden outside. Konoha has no shortage of combat power, but at present, Dr. Connors is the only scientific research talent. At this time, he once again thought of Orochimaru, the research fanatic. Otherwise, develop in the direction of Orochimaru and become a ninja who understands science. With more and more alien creatures, Rog appreciated Orochimaru's existence more and more. He can fight, resist, and research. If Orochimaru's paranoid character wasn't so serious, he would definitely be the best choice for the 4th Hokage. Although Rog appreciated Minato very much, this doesn't affect his appreciation of Orochimaru. In his view, Minato and Orochimaru are like 2 sides of a coin. One represents light, and the other represents darkness. Light can warm people's hearts, and darkness can also give people strength. Chapter 430. The Skrull attack on the headquarters of the Avengers became the headline without any suspense. Various media outlets reported this in detail, and even the accidents that had long been decided were dug out one by one. While the outside world was crazily discussing the Skrull incident, Tani frowned as he looked at the constantly changing numbers on the voting website. In his imagination, the UA people should be more supportive of the decision to imprison the Skrulls permanently. However, it turned out that he was wrong. It had been less than 24 hours since the voting started. But the results of the voting had already shown a huge gap. The number of people who voted for the death penalty was much higher than the number of people who voted for the permanent imprisonment. As time passed, the gap between the two continued to increase. How could this be? Could it be that I was wrong? Looking at the huge gap in real-time data, Tani fell into deep thought. While Tani was paying attention to the real-time data, Rog, who was sitting in his office, also opened the voting website. However, unlike the frowning Tani, he did not feel the slightest bit surprised when he saw the polarized data, as if he already knew this result. Although Rog did not live in the UA as long as Tani, compared to Tani, he was more aware of what the ordinary people were thinking. Tani was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He lived in a superior environment and received the typical elite education in the UA. Growing up in this environment, even if he had the idea of protecting the people and upholding justice, there was a huge gap between him and the ordinary people. The justice he understood was not necessarily the justice that the ordinary people, who had an absolute advantage in numbers, wanted. Moreover, he neglected a very important point. That was, ordinary people were particularly susceptible to the public's emotions. Simply put, it was easy to follow the crowd and lose the ability to think independently and objectively. For example, as long as a victim of the Skrull incident appeared on the internet, this victim could trigger thousands of ordinary people to vote for the death penalty. Compared to the Skrulls who came from other planets, These ordinary people were more willing to show their kindness to their compatriots who had the same appearance. Therefore, the moment Tani agreed to the voting, Rog knew that the Skrulls were doomed. It turned out that his guess was correct. After a simple look at the voting data, Rog closed the website and put on the Kree Empire game helmet. He recently found a game called Crysaber 7702 in the Kree Empire's console game library. It was a game with a high score of 9 stars on the Kree Empire's game rating website. Compared to the Skrulls' ultimate fate, he was more willing to spend his time pleasing himself. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Just as Roger was engrossed in clearing Crysaber 7702, he received a call from Tony. "Bring your Special Forces team." Tony's tone was somewhat gloomy. He didn't wait for Rog's reply and directly hung up the phone. The voting for the Skrulls ended yesterday. Although Tani and the Avengers didn't approve of the final result, they could only choose to accept it. 10 minutes later, Rog brought a 6-man Special Forces team to the Avengers headquarters. The Avengers didn't want to personally end the lives of the Skrulls, so this dirty work naturally fell to Konoha. Rog didn't object to this. The Avengers didn't want to be cruel executioners, but Konoha didn't have such concerns. Even if the Avengers didn't say anything, Rog would have taken the initiative to let Konoha execute the Skrulls. Konoha was different from the Avengers. Konoha didn't need any positive reviews. To some extent, Konoha even took the initiative to develop in the direction that people feared. Reputation and positive reviews were just icing on the cake. Only strength was Konoha's true pursuit. Unlike the previous press conference, the execution process of the Skrulls wasn't broadcasted live. However, at the scene of the execution, there were reporters from various media, as well as some witnesses from the government and the people. The scene of the execution was arranged in a prison in New York. The execution time passed very quickly. It only took less than a minute before it was completely over. It wasn't much different from the previous executions. The only difference was that this time, Konoha's Special Forces used the blasters that Rog bought from Xander. Did we really do something wrong? Why don't people want to let these Skrulls go? They are clearly no longer harmful. Tani, who drank half a bottle of whiskey alone, said to Rog with a flushed face. After the execution, Tani didn't return to the Avengers headquarters. Instead, he took Rog to a bar. Moreover, it was a bar under Rog's name. Although Rog didn't live in New York, he still had a lot of businesses in New York. This bar was one of them. Because he didn't care about making money, after arriving at the bar, Rog directly gave the staff a day off and completely cleared the bar, including the staff. Strictly speaking, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just too idealistic. Unlike Tani, who drank glass after glass of whiskey, Rog just tasted it at a normal speed. Idealistic? Huh, do you think the world really needs us now? Tani continued to ask drunkenly. Whether it needs us or not depends on what you think. At least in my opinion, the world still needs us. Rog wasn't as sentimental as Tani. For him, instead of thinking about these problems, it was better to study how to improve his strength. If you feel lost, I suggest you talk to Dr. Banner. He's a good listener. He may be able to give you some good advice. If you ask me, my suggestion is that you can cultivate some hobbies for yourself to adjust your life. For example, I like to play console games. If you want, I can give you the latest console model of the Kree Empire. Rog gave his own suggestion. Kree Empire? There's such a country on Earth? No, it's an alien country, one of the 3 empires in the universe. When Tani heard the word universe, his eyes suddenly lit up. He then pressed on Rog's shoulder and said very seriously, I want to go to the Kree Empire. You're tuning in to the Wandering Hero YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.